Chapter 38:12. Hearing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's words, the God Kings understood what he meant. He wanted to set up camp in the mystical grotto heaven, set up traps and wait for Long Tianlai to walk into the trap. A few of the more quick-witted God Kings agreed with the Dragon Emperor's intentions and immediately arranged for their subordinates to build a temporary residence for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. However, the deer-horned elder shook his head and advised the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, "Your Majesty, this is not appropriate." The gazes of all the God Kings gathered on the deer-horned old man. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor looked at him and asked, "What's not appropriate?" The deer-horned elder stroked his brown beard and explained, "I can understand your feelings. Since you've returned home, you naturally don't want to leave. You even want to rebuild your home. However, there's nothing left here. There's no value in staying here. Moreover, the Myriad Demon Alliance has yet to be eliminated. If we stay here, we'll be in a passive position. Our advantage is that we can move in the dark. We can advance and retreat as we wish. If we stay here, we'll be in the open and the Myriad Demon Alliance will have the initiative." Hearing this, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and pondered. He was weighing the pros and cons. Many God Kings felt that it made sense and nodded in agreement. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was indeed nostalgic. He missed the scenery of the Divine Palace and wanted to stay. Now that he heard the deer-horned elder's advice, he felt that it made sense and gave up on the idea. "All right, we'll do as you say. We'll leave the mystical grotto heaven and continue to move in the dark." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor nodded in agreement. He said in a dignified tone, "Compared to rebuilding our home, eliminating the Myriad Demon Alliance is more important. Next, I'll continue to contact the forces loyal to me and expand my forces. At the same time, you have to gather information and pay close attention to the Myriad Demon Alliance's movements. After we kill our way into the Myriad Demon City and destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance, I'll reveal my identity and announce the result to millions of people." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor already had a plan for what to do next. Many God Kings felt that it was feasible and praised the Dragon Emperor for his wisdom. Northwest of the Astral Source continent within the Azure Snow region, the Sword of Burial of Heaven was like a streak of black light as it sped through the sky, heading straight for the Demon City. When Xianxia left the Nebula Cave, he wanted to return to the Xuanji Cave to continue his seclusion and wait for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to return. However, in the process of his journey, he suddenly felt a sense of vigilance in his heart, and a connection with the great formation of the 9 bends of the Heaven River was formed. Through the formation he had left in the Great Formation, he could clearly sense that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had returned. Moreover, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had brought dozens of God Kings with him to break the great formation of the 9 bends of the Heaven River. Xianxia was unable to find out where the dozens of God King experts came from, what their identities were, and what their strengths were. However, he was very sure that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had already returned to the Starsource continent. However, there was no news of his return. From this, one could see how shrewd and patient he was. Since that was the case, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor must have come prepared. He must have gathered enough forces under his command to eliminate the Myriad Demon Alliance. When he thought of this, Xianxia immediately changed his mind. He no longer headed to the Xuanji Cave, but turned around and rushed back to the Myriad Demon City. If he went to the Xuanji Cave alone, it would be no different from suicide. His top priority was to return to the Myriad Demon City as soon as possible. He had to make the necessary arrangements and prepare for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's counterattack. Therefore, on his way back to the Myriad Demon City, he had already sent a message to the Chief of Internal Affairs and the Left and Right Protectors to inform them of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's return. At the same time, he also asked about the Luoho Supreme Being's date of return. Previously, he had sent a message to the Chief of Internal Affairs, and learned that the Luoho Supreme Being would be returning to the Dragon Realm very soon. Calculating the time, the Luoho Supreme Being should have returned to the Starsource continent by now. Before long, the Chief of Internal Affairs and the Left and Right Protectors had both sent a message back to Xianxia. A year ago, the Myriad Demon Alliance had withdrawn their defenses and gathered their elite forces to set up defenses around the Myriad Demon City. They were just waiting for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's return. Therefore, the Myriad Demon Alliance did not panic when they heard the news of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's return. Everything went according to plan. They changed their lines of defense and strengthened their defenses in an orderly manner. The myriad demon city's calm response comforted Ji Tianxing slightly. However, the chief of internal affairs' reply made him frown. He was both puzzled and worried. The chief of internal affairs told him that alliance leader Luo Ho had indeed returned to the Dragon Realm. However, he had not returned to the myriad demon city. In fact, they had lost contact with alliance leader Luo Ho over the past few days. They did not know what had happened. This news made Ji Tianxing's heart beat faster. He was even more worried and anxious. He even hastened his steps back to the myriad demon city. The Luo Ho supreme being had not returned yet. He had to rush back to the myriad demon city as soon as possible and personally take charge. Only then would the 1,000 demon city be able to withstand the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's attack. There were also 5 continents in the endless sky ocean of the Dragon Realm. If the entire Dragon Realm's terrain was displayed on a map, one would see that the Star Source continent was located in the center. The other 4 continents were located in the southeast, northeast, southwest and northwest directions of the Star Source continent. The 5 continents were not connected. They were separated by the vast and mysterious endless sky ocean. Unless one was a god king, it would be difficult to cross it. In the northwest direction of the Star Source continent, on the other side of the endless sky ocean, there was an equally vast and rich continent called the Black Dragon continent. This was the origin and homeland of the Black Dragon race. Since ancient times, this continent had been controlled by the Black Dragon Emperor. Until now, the Black Dragon continent had experienced many upheavals in the past 20,000 years. However, the position of the overlord was still as stable as Mount Tai. The overlords of other continents had always been mysterious and low-key. They often did not appear for hundreds or thousands of years. However, the Black Dragon continent was different. The Black Dragon Emperor was an anomaly. He rarely cultivated in seclusion for hundreds or thousands of years. Almost every 100 years he would appear in front of the world. He would often do things that did not suit his status as an overlord, causing the common people to gossip. For example, he would disguise himself as a noble young master and travel the continent, killing the rich to help the poor and redressing grievances for the common people. Another example was that he would bring along 3 to 5 trusted subordinates to disguise themselves and travel incognito. He would show off his affection everywhere among the common people and put on a touching marriage drama. This hobby caused his harem to be filled with wives and concubines. He had so many children that he could form a team of 1,000 people. Also, he would often disguise himself as a virtuous old immortal and go to the common people to give pointers to those talented but poor children of humble backgrounds. In short, the Black Dragon Emperor would try anything that was interesting. He did not care about his status as an overlord. The entire Black Dragon continent was filled with his figure and legendary deeds. He was so active that he was like a fake dragon emperor. Chapter 38:13. The Black Dragon Emperor's abode was located in the famous Starry Sky Grotto. This beautiful and resource-rich grotto was located in the east of the Black Dragon continent. The Starry Sky Cave, which had a circumference of 1,000,000 miles, was like a giant transparent crystal ball attached to the space barrier of the Dragon World. Inside the Starry Sky Grotto, there was a sea of white clouds in the blue sky of the Dragon Realm. Above his head was the dark starry sky of the Outer Realm. There were also billions of specks of starlight and countless silver galaxies. Such a special environment was similar to the star-devouring grotto of the Taotai clan. However, this Starry Sky Grotto was much larger, had much more beautiful scenery and was dozens of times richer in resources. The star-devouring grotto was full of deserts and wastelands, mixed with a large number of barren mountains which hid star veins. However, the Starry Sky Grotto was not like that. There were green mountains and clear waters, thousands of trees and flowers. The incomparably rich power of the stars had nourished this grotto heaven since ancient times, causing many of the mountain ranges to turn into silver mountains of stars. The divine power was so abundant that it could make one's hair stand on end. It would condense into divine liquid and rain from time to time. The rain formed by the divine liquid would flow in the grotto and eventually converge into colorful rivers and lakes. It was no exaggeration to say that the Starry Sky Grotto was full of treasures. A few stones dug out from the mountains would be priceless gems and divine jades in the Dragon Realm. In the entire Black Dragon continent, there was no other grotto that could be compared to the Starry Sky Grotto. Even among the hundreds of grotto heavens in the Dragon Realm, the Starry Sky Grotto's beauty and resources were one of the best. This was also one of the things that the Black Dragon Emperor was proud of. At this moment, in the depths of the Starry Sky Grotto, in a sacred and glorious gilded palace, hundreds of Black Dragon clan guards in golden armor were firmly guarding the surroundings of a certain palace. In the spacious and luxurious palace hall, the atmosphere was tranquil and peaceful. There were only 2 people in the hall, sitting on opposite sides of a jade table. On the jade table were 9 kinds of rare divine fruits, a pot of top-grade divine soul jade tea, and a simple bronze incense burner, emitting refreshing green smoke. Sitting on the south side of the jade table was a tall and skinny black-robed old man. He had a head of long violet black hair, a gloomy and icy cold aura, and his eyes were violet in color. Upon closer inspection, there were actually 9 layers of pupils that overlapped with each other, causing him to seem extremely mysterious and strange. If the elders of the Myriad Demon Alliance were here, they would definitely recognize that this purple-eyed old man was their alliance master Luo Ho. At this moment, the elders and protectors of the Myriad Demon Alliance were filled with anxiety. They had lost track of their leader. However, no one would have thought that their Lord Alliance Master would actually be drinking tea in the Starry Sky Cave of the Black Dragon continent. Seated across from God King Rahu was a middle-aged man dressed in a red robe. He didn't sit upright like God King Rahu. Instead, he reclined in an unrestrained manner. He propped himself up with one hand while sipping tea from his cup with the other. The red robe was also not neat at all. It was crooked and covered his body, and the collar was even pulled. Even his black hair was disheveled, covering the dragon horns on his forehead. He didn't have a bun or a jade crown on his head. Instead, he simply tied his hair into a ponytail, making him look extremely slovenly. To put it in a more refined way, this was called carefree, unrestrained, and frivolous. In particular, under the messy bangs, was a handsome face that was somewhat devilishly handsome, which added a bit of persuasiveness to him. This handsome, carefree, and unrestrained middle-aged man from the dragon race was the overlord of the Black Dragon continent, the Black Dragon Emperor who didn't do proper business. This trait of not doing proper business was vividly displayed at this moment. Ophidian, you've been busy for a few hundred years, but you still haven't found your old man's corpse? The Black Dragon Emperor picked up a divine fruit and threw it into his mouth. He chewed it a few times and looked at God King Rahu from the corner of his eyes as he asked in a muffled voice. God King Rahu shook his head gloomily. The Black Dragon Emperor smacked his lips and revealed a look of pity. He frowned and said, "Then you have to work harder and find his corpse as soon as possible. When the time comes, I'll have to ask him face to face what he comprehended before he died. How could he disappear without a sound? It's fine if he took things too hard, but he only told me half of the story back then. He suddenly did this to me, causing me to be conflicted for over 1,000 years. Even now, I still can't figure out the answer. This won't do. That stinky old man is too disloyal." God King Rahu was speechless and could only reveal a bitter smile. He was very respectful of his old master. The reason he was searching for his old master's corpse was to fulfill his only wish and obsession. However, when these words came out of the Black Dragon Emperor's mouth, they sounded so casual that it made one feel uncomfortable. Fortunately, God King Rahu knew the Black Dragon Emperor's temper and his relationship with his old master. If it were anyone else who dared to tease him like this, God King Rahu would have already wrung their neck. The two were silent. Only the crunching sound of the Black Dragon Emperor chewing on the dried fruit could be heard in the hall. After a while, God King Rahu took the initiative to speak. "I came back this time because I have something important to take care of." The Black Dragon Emperor raised his eyebrows and looked at him from the corner of his eyes. He asked, "Tell me, what is more important than finding my old man's corpse?" God King Rahu said seriously, "The young master has returned." The Black Dragon Emperor was stunned. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. Then he quickly finished the dried fruit in his mouth and swallowed it. He asked, "You mean that brat Long Tian? He's still alive?" God King Rahu frowned and explained, "The young master has been training in the God realm for more than 1,000 years. He returned to the Dragon realm a year and a half ago. Firstly, he wanted to visit his old master. Secondly, he wanted to find his son." The Black Dragon Emperor's eyes widened. His expression became more and more interesting. Not only is that brat not dead, he even has a son? Cough. All these years, I always thought that the reason your old man took things too hard was because that brat Long Tian died. God King Rahu ignored his words and continued, I created a faction in the Starsource continent called the Myriad Demon Alliance. After the young master and I met, I brought him back to the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, he became enemies with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, and our alliance threatened the Mysterious Paradise's position. As a result, our alliance clashed with the Mysterious Paradise. I died in battle with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's clone. In a fit of anger, the young master destroyed the Mysterious Paradise while the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's main body was away. He wanted to take the position of Overlord. The Black Dragon Emperor's eyes widened again. He was shocked. Heh. What a snakeskin. How strong is that brat? He just returned to the Dragon Realm and did something big. He even destroyed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's nest? He didn't seem like such a hot-tempered person when he was young. God King Rahu frowned again and ignored the word snakeskin. He knew that this was the Black Dragon Emperor's catchphrase, so he didn't care. He continued, the young master's strength is on par with mine. Chapter 38:14. Amazing. My little Long Tian is amazing. The Black Dragon Emperor's eyes shone with excitement as he clapped his hands. The Golden Dragon Emperor is the most unsociable. He's always been arrogant and thinks that he's the descendant of the dragon ancestor. He doesn't take us seriously. I've always disliked him, but I just couldn't find a suitable reason to deal with him. I didn't expect little Long Tian to be so amazing and help me vent my anger. God King Luoho's expression didn't change as he continued. The young master is already qualified to take over the old master's mantle. However, the position of Overlord of the Heavenly Dragon Continent has already been given to Dragon Emperor North Sea. Therefore, I agreed to the young master's attack on the Xuanji Grotto Heaven to take over the position of Overlord. However, we have an irreconcilable enmity with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Now that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor should be back for revenge, I'm worried about the young master's safety. The Black Dragon Emperor frowned and asked with a faint smile, neither you nor Long Tian is a match for the Golden Dragon Emperor. However, if the two of you work together, it shouldn't be a problem, right? You came here today to ask me to help you destroy the Golden Dragon Emperor? God King Luoho didn't deny it. He only said solemnly, the young master's future achievements won't be inferior to the old master's. However, he's too young and weak. It's too dangerous for him to face the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor now. Before he could finish, the Black Dragon Emperor waved his hand and interrupted him. Furthermore, the Black Dragon Emperor stopped joking and said with a rare serious expression, Ophiuchus, there are some things that you don't know but your old man knows. Due to some unspeakable reasons, the 5 great dragon emperors can't kill each other. Believe me, we've all sworn heavenly oaths. It's impossible for me to help you kill the Golden Dragon Emperor. Long Tian can cause trouble, so you have to bear the consequences. I can't help you even if I want to. God King Luoho's eyes dimmed when he saw the Black Dragon Emperor's determined tone. However, he changed his mind and said, You've misunderstood. I'm not asking you to kill the Golden Dragon Emperor. I'm asking you to protect the young master. The two of us will deal with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. However, I would like you to hold the fort. Be it in the open or in the dark, please protect the young master. This shouldn't cause you to break your oath, right? The Black Dragon Emperor rubbed his chin and frowned as he thought for a moment. Then he smiled and nodded. That's not a bad idea. You should have said that earlier. It just so happens that I've been bored for a few decades and I'm bored of the Black Dragon continent. Let's go to the Starsource continent for a stroll. Only then did God King Rahu smile. He hurriedly rose to his feet and bowed to the Black Dragon Emperor. Thank you for your help, Black Dragon Emperor. Young master and I will remember this kindness. The Black Dragon Emperor waved his hand and said with a smile, All right, there's no need to be so polite. That kid is to my liking and I don't want to see him die young. Besides, for the sake of your old man, I will think of a way to help. God King Rahu's smile grew increasingly warm. He immediately bowed and took his leave. Since that's the case, this old man will take his leave first. Are you coming with me or? The Black Dragon Emperor hurriedly replied, You can go back first. I'll rush over soon. I have to think about how to give that kid a surprise. God King Rahu did not say anything else. He bowed and was about to leave. Seeing that he was about to reach the entrance of the hall, the Black Dragon Emperor suddenly thought of something. He asked, "Hey Ophiuchus, I have one last question for you." God King Rahu stopped and turned to look at him. He nodded. "Please go ahead." The Black Dragon Emperor rubbed his chin and said with a playful smile, "Tell me honestly, is that kid Long Tian your old man's illegitimate son?" God King Rahu frowned. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Black Dragon Emperor, you asked this question many times 1,000 years ago. Besides, you asked the old master so many times. Didn't the old master answer you every time?" The Black Dragon Emperor looked like he was reminiscing. He continued to smile. "Although old Sky Dragon denied it every time, I always felt that it was hard to believe. Isn't he too good to Long Tian? Also, he gave that kid the name Long Tian. Isn't that just a reverse of the two words? If they aren't father and son, who would believe it?" God King Rahu did not know whether to laugh or cry. He could only explain. "Black Dragon Emperor, don't make wild guesses. It really isn't like that." The Black Dragon Emperor still did not believe him. He pursed his lips and said, "Old Sky Dragon has been single his entire life. If an illegitimate son suddenly appeared, he would definitely not admit it. However, this is understandable. If this happened to me, I would also." Before he could finish, God King Rahu said with a look of disdain, "You won't admit it either? Stop deceiving yourself and others. Your harem is full and you have more than 1,000 children. What is there that you won't admit?" That's true." The Black Dragon Emperor had nothing to say. He could only nod in agreement. God King Rahu did not continue to talk nonsense with him. He waved his hand and turned to leave the hall. At the entrance of the hall, a middle-aged man with 3 legs and golden armor bowed to him and followed him out of the divine palace. The 3-legged man in golden armor was a 9th-level divine king 3-legged golden crow. However, he was not from the Starry Sky Grotto. He was a follower of God King Rahu and had always been active in a star domain outside the realm. This time, God King Rahu had returned from the outer realm and brought this person back to the dragon realm. In the future, he would be able to deal with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor in Xuanji Grotto. As for the 3-legged golden crow's origin, it was a long story with some twists and turns. In fact, this 3-legged golden crow had lived in the dragon realm since the end of the ancient era. At that time, he was an elder of the Golden Crow tribe. Because of the destruction of the Phoenix tribe, the Golden Crow tribe became a sinful tribe in Tianfa. They withered day by day and were in a difficult situation. In order to avoid calamity and disaster, this 3-legged golden crow fled the dragon realm and went to the outer realm to take root in a star domain. After more than 20,000 years of accumulation and development, this 3-legged golden crow had established a large force and had the power to control an entire star domain. Unfortunately, in the great battle for the position of master of the star domain, he lost to an even stronger and more sinister opponent. From then on, the high and mighty overlord became a wanted criminal in the entire star domain. His situation was extremely dangerous. Coincidentally, a few hundred years ago, God King Rahu had entered this star domain to investigate news of Dragon Emperor Feng Tian. The two met by chance and God King Rahu had saved him from danger several times. In the end, he had won his trust and respect. From then on, this 3-legged golden crow followed God King Rahu and secretly built up his force. Of course, God King Rahu did not build his force in the outer realm to seize the position of master of the star domain. He only wanted to make it easier to investigate news of Dragon Emperor Feng Tian and recruit more talents. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 38:15. God King Rahu brought the 3-legged man and left the starry sky grotto heaven. In the spacious and bright hall, the Black Dragon Emperor was still leaning on the jade table, drinking tea and eating divine fruits. However, his frivolous smile and eyes had disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a calm and thoughtful expression. There was no one else in the hall and there were even loyal guards standing guard outside. In here, he was not afraid of anyone eavesdropping. He was very relaxed and content. After pondering for a long while, he knitted his brows and murmured to himself, "Old Sky Dragon, you have always been the clearest and most transparent among the 5 of us, and also the most respected one. However, you actually left us with such a big question before you died. What were you thinking? What did you realize? Could it be the heavenly Tao gave you some instructions? Or did you see the answer? Why did he take things too hard and commit suicide? Isn't it good to live? You still have more than 60,000 years of life. That kid Long Tian is not bad, but I don't understand. Why did you think so highly of him? You can't blame us for suspecting that he is your illegitimate son. No one can understand what you are doing. The Black Dragon Emperor muttered to himself, and his frown deepened. After a long time he seemed to have made up his mind, and his brows relaxed. Fine, I will take advantage of Long Tian's return to observe and study him carefully. I want to see what is so special about him. I hope that I can find the answer to the mystery in my heart through him. The Black Dragon Emperor sighed and waved his hand to put away the jade table. He turned and left the hall. After a while he returned to his bedroom and called for a maid to dress him up. According to the usual practice, he had to disguise himself before going to the Star Source continent. What identity should he disguise himself as? The sun set in the west and night fell. The Thousand Demon City looked calm on the surface, but the atmosphere was solemn and the defense was tight. With the Thousand Demon City as the center, there were a total of 5 lines of defense within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, and hundreds of scouts were scattered around. The entire Darkwater region was under the control of the Thousand Demon Alliance. It was tense and on guard. The Thousand Demon Alliance's intelligence system was in full operation. Once a large group of God Kings entered the Darkwater region, the Thousand Demon Alliance would be the first to know. In the Demon City, inside the Alliance Master's divine palace, Ji Tianxing had already returned. He was sitting on a wooden armchair in the study, listening to the reports of the head of internal affairs and the Great Elder. 15 minutes ago, the chief of internal affairs had reported on the defense of the Demon City, as well as the response plan in case of emergency. The Great Elder, Zhou Xian, reported the peripheral situation of the Myriad Demon Alliance and the layout of the Star Source continent. After listening to their reports, Ji Tianxing nodded in satisfaction and said sincerely, "Over the past year, you've worked so hard to make so many arrangements and deployments that you didn't even have time to heal your wounds. Your contributions and hard work, this king will remember them all in his heart." The chief of internal affairs and Zhou Xian hurriedly bowed and said, "It's our duty to share young master's burdens. We don't dare to claim credit." Both sides exchanged a few pleasantries and asked each other about recent developments. Only then did the chief of internal affairs and Zhou Xian relax and chat with Ji Tianxing. Although the Alliance Master has yet to return, the young master rushed back and personally oversaw the Demon City. Now the morale of the army has been stabilized. "Young master, this old servant still doesn't understand. We have basically dealt with all the pawns and forces under the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. This time he secretly returned to the Star Source continent. He didn't release any news and no one took the initiative to join him. How did dozens of God Kings gather around him? Where in the world did those divine king powerhouses pop out from?" Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a while. He said calmly, "Actually, this is all within my expectations. The Gold Source Dragon Emperor has operated in the Star Source continent for more than 20,000 years. How can he be defeated so easily? The forces and experts that our alliance eliminated should only be a portion of his pawns. There must be some pawns hidden very deeply that we haven't investigated." After pausing for a while he added, "Also, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor has been in the Outer Realm for the past 1,000 years. He might be active in some star regions. With his strength and methods, it shouldn't be difficult for him to recruit a group of God King experts in the Outer Realm." The chief of internal affairs and Zhou Xian had never been to the Outer Realm. However, they had heard from Alliance Master Luo Ho that the 9 great star regions were extremely vast. There were at least 10,000 worlds of various sizes. Although no peak God Kings had been born in those worlds, the number of ordinary God Kings was more than the Dragon Realm. Both of them believed in Ji Tianxing's speculation. This means that the Gold Source Dragon Emperor brought back a group of God Kings from the Outer Realm? Since he brought people from the Outer Realm, it's definitely not just dozens of God Kings. There must be a large group of God Monarchs. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said in a serious tone, "This means that the Gold Source Dragon Emperor's current strength is enough to destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance. Therefore we must be careful." Zhou Xian thought of something and reminded, "Young master, yesterday Ao Jining's spy received news that someone was secretly spreading the news of the Gold Source Dragon Emperor's return. In the past year this rumor has been spread countless times. However, this time it seems to be true." Ji Tianxing frowned and said, "Continue." Zhou Xingyue continued her analysis. Although the factions and god kings on the continent have heard too many similar news and are already numb to it, the news has not spread yet. Many people don't believe it even if they know about it. However, the news will spread eventually. In addition, our alliance has shrunk our defenses and increased our vigilance. These changes will all confirm the news. At that time, the Star Source continent, which had just calmed down, will be stirred up again. I believe that many of the old subordinates of the mysterious grotto will become restless. They might even take the initiative to join the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. Do you think we should keep an eye on those domain lords and first-rate factions? If they make any strange moves, we can assassinate them in advance. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, "This is inevitable. Now we have to gather our forces and focus on dealing with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor's counterattack. We can't split our forces to do this. No matter how the situation changes, no matter how many undercurrents there are, as long as we kill the Gold Source Dragon Emperor, everything will calm down." The Chief of Internal Affairs said worriedly, "But this way we will be in a passive position. The initiative is in the hands of the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. We don't know when he will counterattack or how he will attack." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and tapped his fingers on the table. He said, "Therefore there is only one way for us to take the initiative. That is, to investigate the Gold Source Dragon Emperor's whereabouts. Only when we know his whereabouts can we take the initiative to act. When Alliance leader Luo Ho returns, we can even assassinate the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. Once the assassination is successful, our alliance won't need to fight those experts. We can easily win." Chapter 38:16. Things were just as Ji Tianxing and Xingyue had expected. At first, no one believed the news of the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's return. However, the news spread more and more and it became more and more realistic. In addition, the Myriad Demon Alliance's actions were also known to the world. With the two pieces of news corroborating each other, most people and experts believed that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had returned. As a result, the astral source continent that had finally calmed down became lively again. On the surface, there were endless discussions, but in the dark, countless factions and experts were ready to make a move. The situation became precarious. Smart people knew that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's subordinates had purposely spread the news and used some means to spread it even more widely. After all, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's prestige on this continent was deeply rooted. He had supreme prestige. The current situation was the most advantageous for the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. It was just that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor did not reveal his exact whereabouts. If he showed up somewhere and raised his arm, there would definitely be many followers. The entire astral source continent was in turmoil. The final battle between the Mystical Grotto and the Myriad Demon Alliance was imminent. Meanwhile, the 9 Mystical Grotto in the northernmost part of the continent was as peaceful and quiet as ever. It was as if all the mundane matters in the world had nothing to do with the Golden Rock tribe. Ever since Patriarch Golden Rock brought Ping Fei back to the 9 Mystical Grotto a year ago, the entrance to the 9 Mystical Grotto had been sealed. In the past year, the entrance to the 9 Mystical Grotto had not been opened, and no one had entered or exited. Since then, Patriarch Golden Rock had predicted what would happen next. He also guessed that there would be even greater turmoil and calamity in the near future. The only thing he and the Golden Rock tribe could do was to stay out of it. The changes in the world and the changes in royal authority were all destined by the heavens. No one could be strong forever. No royal authority could stand forever. The Golden Rock tribe had been beaten by the heavens in the ancient era. Naturally, they had recognized the reality and obediently lay low. That was why they had been able to survive until now. This time, regardless of whether the Mystical Grotto or the Myriad Demon Alliance won, the Golden Rock tribe was still as stable as Mount Tai. At this moment, in the depths of the 9 Mystical Grotto, there was a lone mountain that stood at the edge of the 9 Mystical Grotto, standing proudly in the wind. There were 3 thatched cottages at the peak of the lone peak, and an ancient tree with withered yellow leaves. As the cold wind blew, the few withered leaves on the ancient tree fell to the ground one by one. Under the ancient tree, there was a huge stone plate with a radius of 10 feet on the ground. The stone board was square in shape with crisscrossing lines in between, forming a huge chessboard. A handsome young man from the Golden Rock clan in a white robe was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the chessboard. He was cultivating with his eyes closed. The chessboard glowed with a translucent jade light, and the crisscrossing patterns on the chessboard flickered with a five-colored divine light, exuding a divine aura that seemed to be in harmony with heaven and earth. At the edge of the chessboard, a golden-haired old man stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking at the cliff on the side of the lone peak. The youth who was cultivating in seclusion with divine light all over his body was Ping Fei. A year ago, when he left the Xuanji Grotto Heaven with Forefather Golden Rock had asked him if he wanted to return to the 9 mystical Grotto Heaven or stay with Long Tian. According to past practice, Peng Fei would of course stay with Long Tian and was unwilling to return to the 9 mystical Grotto Heaven. However, when he instinctively opened his mouth to say the answer, he swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue. At that time he stood at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain, frowning in silence and thinking for a long time. Forefather Golden Rock stood beside him and looked at him quietly, not rushing him. In the end, Peng Fei changed his mind and decided to return to the 9 mystical Grotto Heaven with Forefather Golden Rock. Although he had followed Ji Tianxing for a year, he had spent most of his time cultivating in seclusion in the Divine Pagoda and rarely had the chance to train with Ji Tianxing. However, Ji Tianxing's experience in that year could be said to be full of twists and turns and dangers. The responses he made and the occasional words he said to Peng Fei gave Peng Fei all sorts of insights. As a result, under Ji Tianxing's influence, Peng Fei gradually found answers to all the questions that he could not understand in the past. Ji Tianxing did not open his heart to Peng Fei, nor did he preach or enlighten him. However, he used his words and actions to influence Peng Fei's Dao heart and beliefs. Even if Peng Fei had insights and made the final decision, it was his own choice. This kind of subtle influence and teaching method was naturally the best and most effective. Of course, this method was only effective for smart people with high comprehension ability. If it was for stupid people, it was better to teach them directly. Peng Fei was smart and had high comprehension ability. The reason why he decided to return to the 9 mystical Grotto Heaven was because he had calmed down and thought carefully, and realized that he had already obtained the answer he wanted. His Dao heart was no longer confused and lost. It had become clear and firm. Since that was the case, there was not much benefit in staying by Ji Tianxing's side. It was better to return to the 9 mystical Grotto Heaven and properly digest the insights and benefits he had gained in the past year, taking the opportunity to break through to the Divine King realm. Ancestor Golden Rock naturally expressed his support for Peng Fei's decision. This was because this highly respected and wise old man had sensed the change in Peng Fei when he first met him. Since Peng Fei understood, it meant that he had found the answer and direction. Of course, this was a good thing. Seeing that his great-great-grandson had matured and was about to break through to the Divine King realm, Ancestor Golden Rock brought Peng Fei back to the 9 mystical Grotto Heaven without hesitation. After returning, he brought Peng Fei to the peak of this mountain and let Peng Fei cultivate in seclusion under the ancient tree to break through to the Divine King realm in peace. This ancient tree originated from the ancient times. It looked old and decrepit on the surface, but its effects were miraculous. This mountain was where Ancestor Golden Rock cultivated in seclusion. Without his permission, no one was allowed to approach. Peng Fei cultivated in seclusion here. With the help of the ancient tree and the chessboard divine formation, as well as Ancestor Golden Rock's protection, he was naturally safe and undisturbed. Now that a year had passed, Peng Fei had already accumulated enough foundation and made all the preparations. Just 2 days ago he had officially begun to break through the shackles. He swore to cross the chasm and enter the Divine King realm. He had already made up his mind. He would not stop until he broke through to the Divine King realm. At the same time, at the southernmost part of the Star Source continent in the vast South Sea, a huge whirlpool with a radius of 10,000 miles had appeared on the surface of the sea since the ancient times. It swallowed seawater day and night. This huge and terrifying whirlpool was like a hole in the sky that could never be filled. No one knew where the whirlpool led to. However, there were a few Divine King experts who knew that the famous South Sea Blessed Land was hidden in this whirlpool. The entrance to the South Sea Blessed Land was very hidden, and it was located in an extremely dangerous whirlpool. Ordinary people could not enter at all. However, at this moment, a man from the Dragon Clan wearing a golden robe and a divine crown stepped into the whirlpool with a deer-horned elder. Chapter 38:17. The entrance to the Blessed Land had been sealed off by a divine array and there were no experts guarding it. Seeing this, the man from the dragon race frowned and sneered. The battle whale race was still loyal to me in the past. I didn't expect them to seal off the entrance to the blessed land. What did Long Tian do to Divine King Battle Whale? Why is he so scared that he doesn't dare to show his face? After more than a month of investigation, the man from the dragon race, who was the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, already knew the details of the destruction of the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. At the critical moment, Divine King Battle Whale asked Old Ancestor Golden Rock for help. However, Old Ancestor Golden Rock turned against him and insisted on leaving. Divine King Battle Whale also lost to Long Tian and fled back to the South Sea Blessed Land. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor already knew about this. He came here today to see Divine King Battle Whale's attitude. If possible, he wanted to persuade Divine King Battle Whale to continue working for him against the Myriad Demon Alliance. Dragon Emperor, are we still going in? The deer-horned elder looked at the sealed entrance and asked with a bow. Of course we are going in. I want to ask Divine King Battle Whale what he wants. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor swung his sleeves angrily and took out his divine sword to slash at the entrance. The divine array at the entrance trembled and cracks appeared. When the deer-horned elder saw the Dragon Emperor attacking, he couldn't just stand by and watch. He quickly took out 2 Zidian axes and attacked the entrance. The divine array at the entrance of the South Sea Blessed Land was personally set up by Divine King Battle Whale. He didn't have enough time to set up a Supreme King Grade Divine Array, so he set up a High King Grade Divine Array. However, it was a high-grade divine array and ordinary divine kings couldn't break it. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was a peak divine king and the deer-horned elder was a 9th degree divine king. How could the divine array withstand their attacks? In less than 10 breaths, the divine array was filled with cracks and was about to break. At this moment, a murderous roar came from within the formation. Who are you? How dare you attack my South Sea Blessed Land? Are you tired of living? Through the blazing white light screen, one could clearly see the commander of the guards guarding the entrance of the Blessed Land, roaring ferociously. That guard commander was a lower divine king, and he had over 100 divine Lord Realm Battle Whale clan guards by his side. All of them were holding sabers, spears, swords and halberds. It was as if they were facing a great enemy. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's face darkened even more. He did not reply but sped up his attack on the ceiling Immortal formation. The guard commander became even more furious and even started cursing loudly. After another 10 breaths of time, a crisp cracking sound rang out, and the ceiling formation finally shattered. A 10 feet wide gap appeared as the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the deer-horned elder charged into the South Sea Blessed Land in a flash. Schwa! Over 100 guards were in a towering rage when they suddenly saw 2 uninvited guests barging in. Their killing intent immediately exploded, and without the commander's order, they immediately surrounded and attacked. This was the instinctive reaction of the guards, and it had nothing to do with the identity of the intruder. The overwhelming divine arts and saber radiance were about to engulf the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the deer-horned elder. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was indifferent. He ignored the guards and looked coldly into the depths of the Blessed Land. On the other hand, the deer-horned elder took a step forward and stood in front of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. His body emitted boundless golden light that was as dazzling as the sun. Boom! There was a loud explosion as the saber radiance, sword radiance, and divine arts were all shattered by the golden light. The ferocious impact sent the leader of the guards and more than 100 guards flying backward. The deer-horned elder had shown mercy. The guards were all severely injured and vomiting blood, but none of them died. Even if these guards had offended the Dragon Emperor, he could not blame them even if he killed them on the spot. However, the owner of this blessed land was a powerful peak divine king, and he could possibly become the Dragon Emperor's assistant. Of course, the deer-horned elder would not kill them so easily, lest he became enemies with them. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor glanced coldly at the scattered guards and shouted in a domineering and imposing tone, "Ask Divine King Warwhale to come out and see me." Some of the smarter guards had guessed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's identity. However, many of the guards were so furious that they were blinded by their anger. They roared and struggled to get up. They waved their weapons and attacked the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor again. By the time the guard commander regained his senses, it was too late to stop them. Seeing this, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's face darkened. However, at this moment, a beam of divine light lit up the sky in the distance, and a majestic roar sounded. Stop! That roar was like a bolt from the blue, and it caused the guards to tremble. Instinctively, they revealed looks of fear. At the same time, a dazzling golden light descended from the sky and enveloped the guards. With a series of muffled bangs, the divine spell attacks of the guards were all blocked by the golden light shield. The guards came back to their senses and no longer dared to attack. They all obediently stayed where they were and stared at the divine light that was speeding towards them. Whoosh! The beam of divine light traveled thousands of miles in an instant and landed on the ground. All of you back down. The person who had arrived was as large as a mountain. He had a wide face and a flat mouth. He emitted the unique scent of the sea tribe. It was God Monarch Battle Whale. Hearing God Monarch Battle Whale's order, the guard commander bowed and hurriedly left with close to 100 guards. Only God Monarch Battle Whale, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, and the Deer-Horned Elder were left. After the Battle Whale guards retreated tens of thousands of miles away, God Monarch Battle Whale looked at the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and bowed apologetically. I came late and allowed my people to offend your majesty. Please forgive me, your majesty. God Monarch Battle Whale did not mention that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had barged into the South Sea blessed land. Instead, he humbled himself and apologized. Seeing his attitude, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's gloomy expression eased a lot. He stared at God Monarch Battle Whale for a moment before saying with a faint smile, "The great God Monarch Battle Whale was forced by a junior to seal his blessed land and not show himself. Previously, I thought that you were severely injured by Long Tian and needed to recuperate. Now it seems like you are not injured at all. That's strange." When God Monarch Battle Whale fought with Ji Tianxing, he was indeed severely injured. However, in the past year, God Monarch Battle Whale had already recovered from his injuries. Now he looked perfectly fine. God Monarch Battle Whale could hear the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's unfriendly tone. He knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was already suspecting him of colluding with Long Tian. Without any hesitation, he bowed and explained, "Dragon Emperor, please enlighten me. A year ago I fought with Long Tian and I did suffer some serious injuries. I have indeed been in seclusion to recuperate for the past year. Regarding this, the elders, protectors and deacons of my tribe can testify." There's no need. I'm still willing to believe you. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor waved his hand and laughed coldly. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 38:18. The words, "I'm still willing to believe you," made God King War Whale's eyes flash with a strange light. Of course, he knew that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's words contained a lot of information and a hint of threat. Although the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's arrogant attitude made him feel uncomfortable, he maintained his composure. However, his expression did not change and he still maintained a respectful attitude. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor did not waste any time and said directly, "You should know why I've come to find you personally." God King War Whale did not play dumb. He bowed and said, "In the battle a year ago, I failed to stop the Myriad Demon Alliance and protect Xuanji Grotto Heaven. This is indeed a dereliction of duty on my part. I have disappointed your Majesty Dragon Emperor. Please punish me. However, Long Tian is too powerful and I'm no match for him. I can't do anything. Speaking of which, Old Ancestor Golden Rock's desertion is despicable." While God King War Whale admitted his fault, he pushed the blame to Old Ancestor Golden Rock to divert the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's anger. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and said in a deep voice, "I'll find an opportunity to settle the score with Old Ancestor Golden Rock after I destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance." However, he has never been interested in worldly affairs and has never pledged his loyalty to me. It's within my expectations that he'll stay out of this. Although the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was angry, he was not unreasonable. God King War Whale realized that he had failed to push the blame to the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. He could not help but feel uneasy. As expected, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor continued, "Since I've returned, I'll naturally gather all my forces to destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance and take revenge. Come and give me a hand. After the Myriad Demon Alliance is pacified, I will remember your contribution." The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor treated God King War Whale as his subordinate. Although he was asking for the God King War Whale's help, the words that came out of his mouth carried a commanding tone. God King War Whale could only smile bitterly. He bowed deeply and said helplessly, "Please forgive me, Your Majesty. I can't do as you say." The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was not surprised by this answer. He was already prepared. He stared at God King War Whale expressionlessly and asked coldly, "Why? Give me a reason." This. God King War Whale was left speechless. His expression kept changing, his eyes filled with hesitation and struggle. Out of his heart he didn't want to tell her the truth. After all, that would be too embarrassing. However, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was not to be trifled with. No matter what excuse he came up with, it would be difficult to deceive the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. Especially at this moment, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor didn't rush him. Instead, he stared at Yi Futian with a sharp gaze and exuded an intimidating aura. That sharp gaze seemed to be able to see through God King War Whale. Divine King War Whale hesitated for a long time before finally deciding to tell the truth. In any case, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was the overlord of the continent, a peak god king. Even if he told him, it wouldn't be embarrassing. Furthermore, given the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's personality, he would not go around telling others about it. "Your Majesty Dragon Emperor, to tell you the truth, I fought with Long Tian and lost to him. He forced me to swear an oath to the heavenly Tao, and I was only able to escape." When God King War Whale revealed this embarrassing secret, he felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor frowned as a cold glint flashed across his eyes. After a moment of silence, he asked in a deep voice, "Is Long Tian really that powerful?" The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor nodded and explained, "He killed Tao Yongxing of the Taotai tribe and stole the primordial chaos bell." The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was enlightened. He knew very well that there was a huge difference between a peak god king with a supreme grade king grade divine weapon and a peak god king without one. "So, Long Tian forced you to swear an oath to the heavenly Tao to stay out of this matter and not attack him in the Myriad Demon Alliance?" God King War Whale smiled bitterly and nodded. "The Dragon Emperor is wise. That is indeed the case." "Humph. How despicable." The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's face darkened as he felt anger surging in his chest after his guess was confirmed. Now that God King War Whale had revealed the truth, he became even more magnanimous. In his opinion, no matter how overbearing the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was, he should have backed off. However, he didn't expect the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor to refuse to give up after a moment of silence. He said, "What is the heavenly Tao? Does it exist? No one can be sure. Things like an oath to the heavenly Tao are even more illusory. As a peak god king, how can you be trapped because of this? If you believe in some *T oath, you will be trapped in a trap of your own making." God King War Whale was rendered speechless by this shameless excuse. He thought to himself, "Anyway, you are not the one who made the oath. If you break the oath, you will not be the one to suffer the wrath of the heavens. It is so easy for you to say that." Despite his anger, God King War Whale could only be patient and explain to the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor the authenticity of the oath to the heavenly Tao. Under his repeated explanations, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor could only give up on the idea. Since God King War Whale was firm in his decision, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor didn't say anything else and left angrily. Both parties parted on bad terms, but God King War Whale was still respectful and sent him out of the South Sea blessed land with a smile. After a while, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor and the Deer-Horned Elder left the South Sea blessed land. They crossed the vast sea and headed north. Seeing that the Dragon Emperor was still angry, the Deer-Horned Elder persuaded, "Your Majesty, please calm down. God King War Whale is bound by the oath to the heavenly Tao and can't serve you." However, his attitude was still respectful and he remembered his status. He didn't overstep his boundaries or show any disrespect. Speaking of which, he is simple-minded and weak. That's why he fell into Long Tian's trap. If you take your anger out on him and don't trust him anymore, you will lose a great help. After the matter with the Myriad Demon Alliance is over, you can still control him. Before the Deer-Horned Elder could finish, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor sneered, "He is only useful to deal with the Myriad Demon Alliance. After I eliminate the Myriad Demon Alliance, what use will he be?" Without a doubt, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had given up on God King War Whale and remembered this debt. After the matter with the Myriad Demon Alliance was over, he would definitely find a reason to suppress and eliminate God King War Whale. The deer-horned old man was terrified when he thought about it, and a wisp of fear flashed through his eyes. He didn't dare say anything else. Not long after, the two left the South Sea and returned to the Starsource continent. At this moment, a communication jade slip descended from the sky and landed in front of the deer-horned elder. The deer-horned elder picked up the jade slip and read the message. He was delighted and reported to the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. "Congratulations, Your Majesty. The news of your return for revenge has spread across the continent. Everyone is excited. Now you are the focus of everyone's attention. In the past 3 days, more than 10 forces have contacted us. They want to pledge their loyalty to Your Majesty and help Your Majesty eliminate the Myriad Demon Alliance. After a few God Kings' investigation and selection, we have finally decided on 9 forces that can be used by us." Of course, the forces that submitted to the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor were mixed. Those who were too weak were not qualified to follow the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. Those who could be used by the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor were either God Kings or a large group of Upper God Kings. Just by taking in 9 factions, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had gained over 1,000 elites. After hearing the deer-horned elder's report, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's brows relaxed. He looked at the northern sky and ordered in a deep voice, "Send my order to them. Secretly gather our men and wait for me in the Qianfeng region. There is no time to lose. Within 10 days, I will personally go to the Myriad Demon City and eliminate the Myriad Demon Alliance." Wonderful Book House. Chapter 38:19. In the past few days, the situation in the Starsource continent had become more and more turbulent. Almost all the factions and empires knew that the Dragon Emperor had returned and was about to launch a counterattack against the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Most people were not qualified to participate in the battle. They could only discuss this matter and support the Gold Source Dragon Emperor spiritually. However, there were also a few experts and factions that secretly contacted the God Kings under the Gold Source Dragon Emperor, hoping to join the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. Those smart people knew that the elders and experts of the mysterious Grotto Heaven had all died in the battle a year ago. Now the Gold Source Dragon Emperor needed people. If they could follow the Gold Source Dragon Emperor to destroy the 10,000 Demon Alliance, they would definitely be promoted. Therefore, there were many experts and factions that wanted to join the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. However, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor did not appear in public and his whereabouts were too secretive. Ordinary people could not contact him at all. If he were to make a public appearance somewhere, it would really be a grand occasion where he would raise his arms and rally his followers. In the heavily guarded 10,000 Demon City, countless elite soldiers were tense. They were filled with vigilance and worry. Even though the acting alliance leader was in the city and had already set up an inescapable net, the Gold Source Dragon Emperor was still in the city. They were not confident that the Gold Source Dragon Emperor could launch a counterattack at any time. They were filled with worry. It was at this moment that the Chief of Internal Affairs finally contacted the old alliance leader. Soon after, an exciting piece of good news spread, causing the hearts of countless elders, hall masters and branch masters to calm down. The old alliance leader had finally returned to the 10,000 Demon City. With 2 peak God Kings in the 10,000 Demon City, the 10,000 Demon Alliance was stable. Even if the Gold Source Dragon Emperor led experts to attack, he would be seeking his own death. All the members of the 10,000 Demon Alliance had the same idea. Their morale was greatly boosted. At the same time, in the 10,000 Demon City, in the Alliance leader's study, Ji Tianxing, the Chief of Internal Affairs, the left and right protectors and a few elders stood in a row and greeted God King Luoho, who had just returned. Seeing that God King Rahu had returned safely, everyone was excited. The heavy burden in their hearts had finally been lifted. God King Luoho sat in the armchair behind the study table. He smiled as he watched everyone greet him. After everyone bowed and exchanged a few pleasantries, God King Rahu pointed at the man standing beside him and introduced him to everyone. "This is the 5th Divine King Jingwu. He is a friend that I made when I was traveling in the outer realm and searching for information. For so many years, it was all thanks to Jingwu Divine King's help that I was able to move around in the extraterritorial realms smoothly. This time, Jingwu Divine King was a great help in dealing with the matters of the Xuanji Grotto. Everyone come and greet the 5th Golden Divine King and get to know each other." Soon, Everyone would have to work together to resist the Xuanji Grotto's counterattack. If they were too unfamiliar with each other, it would be difficult for them to work together. Thus, God King Rahu hurriedly introduced everyone to each other. Ji Tianxing and the others turned to the Jinwu divine monarch and sized up the three-legged man curiously. Jinwu godly king was tactful. He knew that these people were godly King Luoho's trusted aides. Before anyone could greet him, he smiled and took the initiative to say, "Alliance leader, you are flattering me. Back then, in the outer realm, if you had not saved me twice, I would have turned into ashes and died in a foreign land. How could I have survived until now? It is my honor to be able to follow you and share your burdens. Of course, it is my honor to be able to meet all of you here." After speaking, Jinwu Divine King took the initiative to greet Ji Tianxing and the others. Ji Tianxing, the head of internal affairs, the protectors and the elders also bowed to Jinwu Divine King and introduced themselves. Both parties exchanged pleasantries and chatted for a long time before it ended. In this way, everyone was acquainted with Jinwu Divine King. However, when he would gain everyone's trust and friendship would depend on his subsequent performance. After everyone finished exchanging pleasantries, the head of internal affairs and the left and right protectors reported to God King Rahu about the Myriad Demon Alliance's current defense situation. God King Rahu expressed his approval. After knowing that it was Ji Tianxing's arrangement, he felt gratified. After discussing official matters, Ji Tianxing asked, "You should have returned to the Myriad Demon City a few days ago. Why did you disappear for a few days? What happened?" Not only was Ji Tianxing puzzled, but the head of internal affairs, the protectors and the elders also looked at him and had the same question in their hearts. God King Rahu smiled and said, "Young master, this is also something that I wanted to tell everyone. The reason why I disappeared for a few days was because I went to a special place and met a special expert." Everyone was still puzzled, but Ji Tianxing guessed what he meant and asked, "You went to find strong reinforcements?" "That's right." God King Rahu smiled and nodded. He said, "I met that expert and chatted with him about old times. I also asked him for help. He agreed. Although he did not return with me, he will help when the time is right." The head of internal affairs was stunned for a moment and asked, "Alliance Master, is the expert you are talking about a peak God King?" "Of course." God King Rahu nodded without hesitation. The head of internal affairs, the left and right protectors, and the elders were instantly excited and applauded. "That's great. With another peak God King's help, we now have 3 Supreme Being experts. Haha. We have 3 peak God Kings. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor is dead for sure this time. Previously we were still worried that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor would counterattack. Now, we can't wait for him to come and die. As long as we can kill the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor, our alliance will be able to control the Star Source continent and establish a foundation for eternity. Alliance Master is mighty. Young Master is wise. Myriad Demon Alliance will win." Everyone was bursting with confidence and cheered excitedly. They could not wait to fight the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor immediately. However, Ji Tianxing was thinking more than everyone else. While he was happy, he was also secretly guessing the identity of the peak God King. He used his consciousness to send a voice transmission to God King Rahu. "Snake Fu, the peak God King you are talking about is Master's friend, right?" God King Rahu did not hide anything and nodded with a smile. Ji Tianxing asked again, "Since he is a peak God King, he is definitely not from the Star Source continent. Is it Brother Red Dragon from the Red Dragon continent or the Sacred Dragon Emperor from the Sacred Dragon continent? Or that old scoundrel from the Black Dragon continent?" Ji Tianxing knew very well that there were 5 Supreme Being Dragon Emperors in the Dragon Realm. Other than the Gold Dragon Emperor from the Star Source continent, his master Heaven-Sealing Dragon Emperor was on good terms with the other 3 Dragon Emperors. As the only disciple of Heaven-Sealing Dragon Emperor, he was not unfamiliar with the other 3 Dragon Emperors. The Red Dragon Emperor, the overlord of the Red Dragon continent, was on good terms with him and took good care of him. The old scoundrel from the Black Dragon continent was on the best terms with Heaven-Sealing Dragon Emperor. As for the Sacred Dragon Emperor from the Sacred Dragon continent, although he was only on friendly terms with Heaven-Sealing Dragon Emperor, he might still help him on account of their friendship. Chapter 38:20. Out of his heart, God King Rahu wanted to tell Ji Tianxing the truth. But remembering that person's instructions, he could only keep it a secret. He transmitted to Ji Tianxing, "Young master, you guessed right. It is indeed one of the three. Ji Tianxing chuckled. You still want to keep it a secret? This secretive style is a bit like that unscrupulous old man. Immortal King Luoho smiled. Soon when we go to war with abstruse grotto heaven, you will see him. Ji Tianxing thought for a while, then frowned and asked, I remember Master saying that the 5 great dragon emperors had an agreement. They seem to have sworn a heavenly oath not to kill each other. Will that person help us deal with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor? Immortal King Luoho was a little surprised. He transmitted, so young Master also knows this secret. He did explain it to me. When we go to war with abstruse grotto heaven, he will not personally deal with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. I went to look for him to ask for his help in protecting young lord's safety. Ji Tianxing frowned and said disappointedly, in that case he is not our strong helper but only a protective talisman? Immortal King Luoho did not mind. He said calmly, fighting for supremacy with abstruse grotto heaven is our business. We should not borrow the help of others. Interfering with the succession of the continent's overlord is a huge karma. It could very well affect the will of the heavens. Peak immortal kings like him and old ancestor Golden Rock are at a critical juncture of comprehending the power of the heavens. Naturally, they would not dare to get involved in such a huge karma. Karma and the will of the heavens were all very vague sayings. But that was because the common people had not seen it with their own eyes. Of course they would not believe it. But experts like Ji Tianxing and Immortal King Luoho believed it without a doubt. They knew very well how sacred, powerful and unpredictable the will of the heavens was. Therefore it was understandable that the Dragon Emperor did not deal with the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. The regret in Ji Tianxing's heart also dissipated a lot. Your words have reminded me of something. In the past, God King Warwhale probably didn't believe in the will of the heavenly Tao and karma. That's why he accepted the War Dragon King's invitation to help the mysterious paradise deal with us. However, I taught him a lesson and forced him to swear an oath to the heavenly Tao. Now he definitely won't dare to get involved in this matter. Luoho God King revealed a look of interest. He nodded and said, Young Master, please tell me the details of this matter later. Alright, let's get down to business first. Ji Tianxing stopped talking to him through telepathy and turned to look at Jingwu Divine King, Fu Ergu, the left and right protectors and a few elders. Now that the overall situation has been decided, you can speak freely if you have any ideas about the next action plan. God King Rahu nodded as well. Everyone give us your suggestions. Let's brainstorm. Everyone fell silent, frowning as they pondered over the method and wording. Ji Tianxing, the chief of internal affairs, Zhou Xian, and the others all glanced at Jingwu Divine King. Jingwu Divine King was very tactful. He bowed and said with a smile, I'm just following the leader. I'm following his orders. As for the Dragon Realm and the mysterious paradise, I'm still not familiar with the situation. I don't have any plans or countermeasures, so I won't embarrass myself. Please give me your suggestions. If you have any orders or need my help, I'll do it. Jingwu Divine King made his attitude clear. He was just following orders and running errands. He would never criticize the Myriad Demon Alliance, nor would he overstep his authority. The chief of internal affairs, the left and right protectors and a few elders were relieved. They felt that this person was very sensible and would be able to get along well in the future. Currently, the situation in the Star Source continent was turbulent. The Myriad Demon Alliance's emotions were tense. They could have a decisive battle with the mysterious paradise at any time. If at this time there was discord among the experts or even signs of a power struggle, it would be a fatal blow to the Myriad Demon Alliance. Previously, everyone was still a little worried. Now they lowered their guard. Therefore, Zhou Xian took the lead and said, since it's a brainstorming session, I'll throw a brick to attract the jade. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor hasn't shown himself yet. Instead, he's secretly recruiting people and creating rumors. He wants us to panic. I'm guessing that he must have planted spies near the Myriad Demon City. He might even have spies in the Alliance. When our defense is weakened, it'll be the time for the mysterious paradise to launch a large-scale attack. I suggest that the Alliance's soldiers maintain a high level of vigilance at all times. Also, we must strictly investigate those who are acting strangely. We can't reveal any flaws. Hearing this, everyone nodded slightly in agreement. With Zhou Xian taking the lead, Ao Jining also said, I'll control the intelligence network. I'll do my best to find out any information about the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Currently, our disadvantage is that we're in the open while the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is in the dark. He has the initiative. As long as we can find traces of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, we can turn from passive to active. I believe that this should be a breakthrough for us to defeat the mysterious paradise. Although we have many subordinates, we don't have any peak experts. It's inconvenient for us to do things. I'd like to ask Lord Alliance Master to send 1 or 2 peak experts to help. Everyone felt that Ao Jining's words made sense. They all nodded in agreement. Luoho God King looked at the left and right protectors. The left and right protectors stroked their beards and smiled. The 2 elders have said what needs to be said. We've done what needs to be done under young master's orders. Luoho God King then looked at the Chief of Internal Affairs, Fu Ergu. He bowed without hesitation and said, I don't know much about external affairs. I've troubled everyone. However, I'll do my best to deal with the internal affairs of the Myriad Demon City, as well as the investigation of spies and the elimination of the mysterious paradise's spies. Luoho God King nodded in satisfaction. He then looked at Ji Tianxing and asked, Young Master, do you have any additional instructions? Ji Tianxing had already thought of what to say. He said directly, Based on the current situation, our alliance's morale is stable. We're in a state of high alert. Our battle strength is also at its peak. Even if there are some small mistakes or problems, they can be resolved quickly. However, the biggest problem is that we're in a passive position. We can only wait for the mysterious paradise to attack. As the saying goes, you can only be a thief for 1,000 days. How can you guard against a thief for 1,000 days? No matter how elite a soldier is, if they're constantly in a tense state, there will be a day when they collapse. If the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is cunning enough and patient enough, he'll find an opportunity to strike after a few more months. Therefore, we must prepare a backup plan on top of being fully alert. Luoho God King, the protectors and the elders' eyes lit up. They all asked, Young Master, what preparations? Ji Tianxing smiled confidently and said, If the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor doesn't act, then we'll force him to show himself. Chapter 38:21. Force the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor to show himself? The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor has already returned to the Starsource continent for 2 months, but he still refuses to show himself. He's obviously very patient and sinister. I wonder if young master has a good plan to force him to show himself? The left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and a few elders all looked at Ji Tianxing expectantly. Even the Jinwu Divine King was looking at Ji Tianxing with shining eyes and a smile on his face. This quick-witted 3-legged fellow could tell that this young master was extraordinary and had a high prestige in the league after interacting with him for a short hour. Everyone was still thinking about how to guard against the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's sudden attack. However, he had already thought about how to attack if the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor chose not to show himself. Just this point alone made the Jinwu Divine King feel that this young master was worthy of everyone's trust and respect. He was also very interested in the young master's second plan. Ji Tianxing said, I've set up a new sealing formation in the Xuanji Grotto. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor once broke through the formation and returned to the Xuanji Grotto. However, he did not stay in the Xuanji Grotto and did not rebuild his home. In order to seize the initiative, he chose to hide in the dark and temporarily give up on the Xuanji Grotto. He is very wise. He knows that only by destroying our alliance can he truly take back the Xuanji Grotto. However, this also gives us an opportunity. Hu Xinyue immediately understood what he meant. Her eyes lit up as she asked, Young master, you mean we can take advantage of the Xuanji Grotto? Yes. Ji Tianxing nodded and explained, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor is not in a hurry. He wants to stall for time and attack after we've been worn down. Then we'll take control of the Xuanji Grotto and build a divine palace with great fanfare. We'll spread the news and let everyone know that we're going to take over the Xuanji Grotto. Ao Jining will be in charge of intelligence and spread the news with exaggerated details. For example, our alliance is the rightful ruler and the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor has died in the Outer Realm. Another example is that the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor has secretly returned to the Starsource continent. However, he's living an ignoble existence and does not dare to take revenge. At that time, how will the people talk about it? Where will the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's dignity go? Hearing this, everyone understood and smiled. Young Lord is wise. Zhou Xian was the most excited one and he was even eager to try. He said emotionally, "Leading the wind and public opinion is what I am best at. At that time I will slander and humiliate the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Let's see if he can still keep his cool." If he continued to endure, he would lose all of his reputation and dignity. Even if he regained control of the Xuanji Grotto, his prestige would plummet. But with his nature, he won't be able to tolerate it no matter what. He'll definitely make a high-profile appearance, announce it to the world, and launch a large-scale attack. The left and right protectors, the head of internal affairs, and several elders also agreed with this idea and put forward their own suggestions. With a few words of discussion, many details were perfected. Seeing everyone's anticipation and eagerness, God King Rahu revealed a smile and nodded. "Young master, what you said is indeed a good idea. It will save time and effort. Since that's the case, I'll leave this matter to you. Let's get started as soon as possible." "Okay." Ji Tianxing nodded in agreement. God King Rahu then instructed God King Jinwu. "Jinwu, the third elder, doesn't have any top experts under him. Go and help him gather information and carry out some missions." God King Jinwu naturally wouldn't decline and agreed without hesitation. God King Rahu then looked at the head of internal affairs and said, "I'll leave the internal affairs of the demon city to you, as well as the matter of eliminating spies and spies. I won't disappoint the alliance leader." Fu Ergu immediately bowed. After the discussion, everyone bid farewell and left. Only Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu were left in the study. The two sat down and continued to discuss the details of the mission. "Young lord, go to the Xuanji Grotto to build a divine palace. Zhou Xian will cooperate with you to spread the news and force the Golden Dragon Emperor to appear. When the time comes, the Golden Dragon Emperor will very likely lead his troops to attack the demon city. However, he might also lead his experts to attack the Xuanji Grotto in anger. The demon city and the Xuanji Grotto are very far apart. We can't split into two groups, right?" Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "You're more thoughtful than them. You even considered this drawback." "It's fine, I've already thought about it. I'll set up a teleportation divine formation in the Xuanji Grotto that connects to the demon city. This will make it easier for us to send reinforcements. Also, the construction of the divine palace is just a pretense. We won't really invest too many people. The real elites will stay in the demon city and I'll bring the rest with me." God King Rahu knew that he had the primordial chaos bell and could bring countless soldiers with him. He didn't ask for details. After all, Ji Tianxing had led his troops to attack the Xuanji Grotto's strongholds and sneaked into the Xuanji Grotto to attack the Golden Dragon Mountain's headquarters. Both God King Rahu and Ji Tianxing knew what to do. They also let the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor use what he learned and used it against the Demon Alliance. The two of them conversed in secret for an hour before Ji Tianxing took his leave. Following that, Ji Tianxing selected over 1,000 elite Divine Lord experts and 5 Divine King experts to hide in the Primal Chaos Primordial Bell. The Demon City also spread the news that they were recruiting more than 2,000 craftsmen. 2 days later, Ji Tianxing steered a divine ship and brought the 2,000 or so artisans to the Enigma Paradise at lightning speed. After arriving at the Xuanji Grotto, he first repaired the 9 bends of the Heaven River formation at the entrance. Then he led the God Kings and God Lords to build a teleportation divine formation in the depths of the grotto to connect to the demon city. At the same time, the intelligence network that Zhou Xian was in charge of started spreading all kinds of news on the Starsource continent. There were 2 sides to the news. One was that the Demon Alliance wanted to take control of the Xuanji Grotto and establish themselves as the overlord. On the other hand, they were unscrupulously slandering the Golden Source Dragon Emperor. The situation in the Starsource continent was already unstable and tense to the extreme. The commoners, factions, and experts were all paying attention to the Demon Alliance and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's every move. The news was spread by the Demon Alliance to all regions in the continent at an extremely fast speed. In just a few days, everyone knew about it. In the beginning, many experts and factions did not believe that the Demon Alliance would be so arrogant to enter the Xuanji Grotto at this juncture. For 7 consecutive days, there were countless experts and secret agents gathering information in the vicinity of Sky Crane Mountain. In the end, those experts and spies found that there were indeed people entering and leaving the Xuanji Grotto. Some experts used their mystiques to disguise themselves and sneak into the Xuanji Grotto. Then they saw that there were indeed more than 2,000 craftsmen in the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain. They were busy building divine palaces. When the news spread, it caused a huge uproar on the Starsource continent. Everyone knew that the Demon Alliance was really going to take control of the Xuanji Grotto. This was basically trampling on the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's face. For a time, the situation on the continent was extremely tense. Turbulent undercurrents could erupt at any time. The public opinion and the direction of the wind started to become chaotic and complicated. This lessened the pressure on the Demon Alliance, but cast a shadow over the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. As all kinds of messy news spread, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's reputation became worse and worse. His status in the hearts of the commoners also plummeted. Smart factions and experts knew that the Demon Alliance was forcing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to show himself. However, the commoners did not understand. They only knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not dare to show himself. It was very strange and disappointing. Chapter 38-22. When the situation was extremely tense and the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's reputation was in tatters, Fifth Gene was also the busiest. He only had one mission, and that was to help Ao Genieing investigate the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's whereabouts. As long as he could confirm the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's whereabouts, it would be a great contribution. This was because everyone in the Myriad Demon Alliance believed that as long as they could confirm the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's whereabouts, the Old Alliance Master and Young Alliance Master would definitely be able to kill him. However, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's forbearance exceeded everyone's expectations. Even though his reputation was in tatters and he had been slandered by all sorts of rumors, he still refused to show himself, and his whereabouts were never revealed. Even a Ninth Heaven Realm Divine King like Fifth Gene, who had the Myriad Demon Alliance's powerful intelligence network, could not find the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's whereabouts. Therefore, in these 10 days, the Myriad Demon Alliance seemed to have the upper hand on the surface and suppressed the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor in terms of reputation. However, in reality, Divine King Luo Ho, the General Manager, the Protectors, and the Elders were all worried for Ji Tianxing and were extremely worried. Without knowing the whereabouts of the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor, they could not predict whether his next target would be the Myriad Demon City or the Xuanji Cave. The Myriad Demon City was still fine, as 70% of the Myriad Demon Alliance's elite forces were gathered there and they were heavily guarded. However, in the Xuanji Cave, there were not many true experts around Ji Tianxing. There were only 5 Divine King experts and over 1,000 Divine Monarchs. The remaining 2,000 over people were all craftsmen with weak combat strength. 12 days passed. The tense situation in the Stellar Source continent was like an extremely taut bowstring that could snap at any time. Finally, on the morning of the 13th day before the sun rose, a figure covered in a black robe and a large cloak silently descended on the peak of the Sky Crane Mountain. This tall figure stood in the sea of clouds and looked up at the bright moon in the sky. An elder with antlers who was also wearing a black robe and a cloak followed silently beside the figure. Without a doubt, they were the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor and the elder with antlers. The bright moon in the sky was once again entangled by the 9 intersecting heavenly rivers. Clearly, Ji Tianxing had sealed the entrance to the Enigma Grotto. A few days ago, many secret agents and experts had come to the vicinity of Sky Crane Mountain to inquire about the situation in Xuanji Grotto. At that time, the entrance to the Xuanji Grotto had not been sealed, and many craftsmen could be seen entering and leaving. There were even people who could possess the body of a craftsman or disguise themselves to sneak into the Xuanji Grotto to gather information. At that moment, the Grotto Heaven's entrance was sealed. No one could enter or leave, and there were no guards around Sky Crane Mountain. The deer-horned elder looked at the bright moon and said with a complicated tone, "Your Majesty, there were still craftsmen coming in and out of this place a few days ago. Our spies were able to sneak in to investigate the situation. But now the entrance to the Grotto Heaven was sealed and no one could enter." He was afraid that the craftsmen in the Grotto Heaven were just bluffing when they built the Divine Palace. It was obviously a trap set up by the 10,000 Demons Alliance to force you to show up. Right now, the elite forces of the 10,000 Demon Alliance must be hiding in the Mystic Paradise, waiting for us to walk into their trap. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor stared at the cave entrance and said coldly in a low voice, "That's right. I understand what you've said." Many forces and God King experts could see the sinister intentions of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. But what's the use of that? How can I allow those bastards from the 10,000 Demon Alliance to slander and tarnish my reputation? They want to stir up the situation and force me to show myself through the mouths of the people. Since I've made sufficient preparations, there's no need to hide anymore. I'll fulfill their wishes today. I'll take back Xuanji Grotto and announce to the world that the Starsource continent belongs to me. The 10,000 Demon Alliance are all traitors that everyone has the right to kill. When the time comes, I'll send a decree to the entire continent. The 10,000 Demon Alliance will become the public enemy and no one will tolerate them. The deer-horned elder frowned slightly and said worriedly, "But your majesty, we've already waited for so long and recruited 15 forces. Why are we in such a hurry? If we wait for a few more days, we can recruit a few more forces and be more prepared. At that time we can directly attack the enemy's den and annihilate the myriad demon city as easily as crushing dry weeds." Before the deer-horned elder could finish, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor interrupted him and said calmly, "You are good at scheming and scheming. You might be able to do well in the outer realm but not in the dragon realm. If I do as you said, I will be regarded as a sordid and ruthless man even if I destroy the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Such people could be ambitious and ruthless, but they could not be emperors or overlords. Like today, using only 70% of the strategy and 30% of the strength. This was a bold and astute way of the emperor. The outcome is important, but reputation and prestige are even more important." After saying that, he turned his head to look at the deer-horned elder and said in a deep voice, "Don't forget, this emperor is not expanding our territory but quelling a rebellion. If we lose the hearts of the people, even if we reclaim the lost land, we will disappoint the people." The deer-horned old man could only helplessly sigh when he saw how stubborn he was. He bowed and said, "Yes, your majesty." He still felt that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's actions were not reliable enough. However, he also understood that this was the dragon realm. The dragon race and the millions of demons had their own pride, thoughts, and beliefs. If one wanted to rule a continent for a long time, it was not enough to rely on martial strength alone. One also needed the hearts of the people and prestige. This was unlike the outer realm where there were many races, beliefs and only believed in martial strength. Regardless of whether it was scheming or not, whoever won was right. Zhoush. Just as the deer-horned elder was lamenting, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor took out a dark golden dragon-shaped divine sword. The divine sword shone with white light and opened the world within the sword, forming a space door in the sky. Then 60 God King experts flew out of the space door and gathered behind the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Among these people, there were 11 upper God Kings and the rest were intermediate God Kings. Although the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's divine sword already contained over 100 God Kings and over 3,000 God Lords, these 60 God Kings were stronger. Previously, they had come here with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and worked together to break the great formation of 9 bends of the Sky River. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor held the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and pointed at the bright moon in the sky. He ordered, "You have broken this formation before. Today I will only give you half a day's time." The deer-horned elder quickly bowed and said, "Please rest assured, your majesty. We will do our best." After saying that, he led the 60 God King experts into the sky and spread out around the bright moon. Just like before, the deer-horned elder was in control of the situation. He commanded the 60 God Kings to form a formation and work together to break the formation. With the experience of breaking the formation the previous time, everyone worked together very well this time. Moreover, their casting speed was doubled. Everyone thought that they would be able to break the great formation of 9 bends of the Sky River within half a day. However, when the deer-horned elder saw the structure of the formation, he instantly frowned and his expression turned ugly. Chapter 38-23. Bastard, he actually changed the structure of the array and added 9 more transformations? The deer-horned elder stared at the 9 bends of Heaven River array coldly as he murmured to himself. I thought that the array we broke previously was already the peak state of this divine array. I didn't expect him to make 9 more transformations just by making some minor adjustments to the array, increasing its power by 30%. This kid's comprehension and array Dao attainments are at the peak of perfection. It's really terrifying. The array was still the same, but the method they used to break it was useless. They had to observe and break it again. The half-day deadline given by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was impossible to achieve. Therefore, the deer-horned elder could only report the truth to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only suppress his anger and observe the array personally to think of a way to break it. 2 hours later, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor finally thought of a way to break it. He personally took charge of the situation and instructed the Deer-Horned Elder and the 60 God Kings to cooperate with him. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. As the dazzling divine lights entered the 9 Bends of Heaven River Array, the 9 Bends of Heaven River Array shone with silver light and released powerful divine power fluctuations. The work of breaking the array began in an orderly manner. There were no guards at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. However, there were more than 30 armored and sword-wielding guards at the entrance of the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. They guarded the entrance day and night without rest. Ever since the Young Alliance Master personally sealed the entrance 4 days ago, they had been guarding the entrance without leaving. Of course, their mission was not to stop the invaders but to monitor the movements of the 9 Bends of Heaven River Array. If there was any abnormal reaction from the array, they would immediately report it to the Young Alliance Master. At this moment, the spatial door with a radius of 10,000 feet suddenly trembled and flashed with a blinding white light. The 30 or so guards immediately became alert and stared at the spatial gate with vigilant gazes. The leader of the guards took out his communication jade slip without hesitation and reported the situation to the Young Alliance Master. In the depths of the Grotto Heaven, the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain had been flattened by many craftsmen over the past few days. Countless wood and stone materials were piled up on the flattened ground. There were also many palace walls that had just been built. More than 2,000 craftsmen were ordered to build the Divine Palace. They were busy for a few days. However, 4 days ago, the Young Alliance Master issued an order to stop the construction work. After that, all of the craftsmen were gathered together and brought to the depths of the mysterious paradise. They entered a certain palace at the foot of the mountains to rest and recuperate. At this time, Ji Tianxing was in the deepest part of the mountains, at the peak of a giant mountain that was tens of thousands of feet high. The peak of the mountain was originally covered with forests and piles of rocks, but now it was leveled. The ground of the mountain peak with a radius of 100 miles was paved with huge blue stone, forming a spacious square. In the middle of the square was a tall altar with a radius of 10,000 feet. The altar that had gathered dozens of materials and consumed hundreds of billions of resources was actually a teleportation divine array. In order to set up this transmission array that connected to the 1,000-demon city, Ji Tianxing and the 9 Divine King powerhouses spent a full 9 days and 9 nights. Of the 9 Divine King powerhouses, 5 were brought by him from the 1,000-demon alliance, including Divine King Wanli and 2 elders. The other 4 were naturally Yun Yao, Ji Ku Chao Qingyu and Bai Feng. After setting up the teleportation divine array, Ji Tianxing and the 9 Divine Kings returned to the distorted space-time and the divine clock world to recuperate. At this time, Ji Tianxing sensed that the great 9 Bends of Heaven River Array was moving. He ended his cultivation and left the distorted space-time. Swoosh! With a flash of white light, he appeared on the square at the peak of the mountain. He raised his hand and put away the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes pagoda. He frowned and looked in the direction of the paradise entrance. He used his mind to sense the changes in the great 9 Bends of Heaven River Array. At this time, a communication jade slip flew from the sky and landed in front of him. He picked up the jade slip and used his divine sense to read the message inside. The guard commander reported respectfully, reporting to the Young Alliance Master, "There are experts attacking the seal array." Ji Tianxing carefully sensed the changes in the array. He had an answer in his heart. He muttered to himself, "They are not attacking. They are casting spells to break the array." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor could not hold back and attacked. Therefore he used the communication jade slip to order the guards to retreat to the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins immediately. Immediately after, he sent a message to Divine King Luoho, asking the elites of the 1,000-demon alliance to gather and prepare to teleport to the mysterious paradise through the teleportation divine array. Swoosh! The communication jade slip flew high into the sky and disappeared. Ji Tianxing also left the peak of the mountain and rushed to the paradise entrance to activate the great 9 Bends of Heaven River Array. Although the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had brought dozens of Divine King powerhouses and could definitely break the array, but he still had to stop them and buy more time for the 1,000-demon alliance's soldiers. More than 10 days ago, when Ji Tianxing left the 1,000-demon city, Divine King Luoho Hu Xinyue, and the others had already started making preparations. At this moment, Divine King Luoho received Ji Tianqing's message. He immediately relaxed his brows and smiled as though he had been relieved of a heavy burden. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is a sly old fox. He finally could not hold back. I guessed right. He did not dare to attack the Thousand Demon City because he wanted to be safe. So he went to attack the mysterious paradise. Divine King Luoho sneered and kept the communication jade slip. He quickly ordered the left and right protectors to gather the elite soldiers. Soon, the urgent sound of a bell rang in the Thousand Demon City and spread to every corner of the city. Thousands of Sir God powerhouses and dozens of Divine King powerhouses had been recuperating in the city, waiting for orders. When they heard the bell and the orders of their superiors, they quickly gathered at the city square in an orderly manner. Although the city was huge, thousands of people were scattered around the city, guarding different posts. However, these elite soldiers still managed to gather within 2 hours. Immediately after, Grand Elder Hu Xinyue personally led the soldiers into an underground palace in the depths of the Divine Palace. In that spacious but dark underground palace, there was a teleportation divine formation that had been set up not long ago. Under the lead of the left and right protectors and the 7 elders, more than 3,000 soldiers stepped into the teleportation divine formation and left the Thousand Demon City. After the soldiers left, Divine King Luoho, the Chief of Internal Affairs, and Divine King Jingwu also rushed over. At the edge of the teleportation divine formation, Divine King Luoho patted the Chief of Internal Affairs' shoulder and said earnestly, "Although I know that you want to fight the enemy with everyone, I know that you must protect the Thousand Demon City. You must stay behind to protect the Thousand Demon City. This time, 80% of the Alliance's elite forces will go to the mysterious paradise to participate in the battle. The Thousand Demon City's defenses are at their weakest and it is also the most dangerous time. This is our home and nest. Nothing must happen to it. Therefore, I can only be at ease if I hand this difficult task to you. I will definitely not disappoint you." The Chief of Internal Affairs had a complicated expression on his face. He bowed solemnly and watched Divine King Luoho and Divine King Jingwu step into the teleportation divine formation. Chapter 38-24. Inside the Xuanji Cave. Deep within the mountains at the peak of a giant mountain. On the square, which had a radius of 100 miles, the tall altar glowed with a divine light, releasing beams of white light one after another. Groups of divine sovereign realm experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance flew out of the altar and landed on the square made of blue stones. In just 100 breaths, more than 3,000 soldiers had arrived at the Xuanji Cave from the 10,000 Demon City through the teleportation array. They landed on the plaza and arranged themselves neatly into 6 teams. There was no sign of panic on their faces. The left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and a few elders were the leaders of the 6 teams. After organizing their teams, they looked at the altar and waited for their alliance master to arrive. Whoosh, whoosh. When Luoho Supreme Being and Golden Fifth Supreme Being flew out from the altar, everyone had finally arrived. The soldiers did not salute. They only looked at the alliance master with burning gazes and excitement. Their blood was boiling in their bodies. Luoho Supreme Being looked at the entrance of the cave. Although his spiritual consciousness could not detect the situation there, he knew that Ji Tianqing was holding back the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the others. He was using his own strength to fight the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and dozens of Supreme Being experts through the 9 Bends Heaven River formation. This was undoubtedly dangerous, but it could effectively stall for time. At the same time, it could let the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor know that he was in the Xuanji Cave and was not bluffing. This was the only way for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to be more determined to attack and not retreat halfway through. Soldiers, listen up. Let's go. Luoho Supreme Being was worried about Ji Tianqing's safety. Therefore he did not delay any longer. He immediately gave the order and led the 3,000 soldiers towards the Golden Dragon Mountain range. That was the battlefield that Ji Tianqing had chosen. It was the most advantageous for the 10,000 Demon Alliance to fight there. This was because the seemingly messy piles of stone and wood, together with the palace walls that had just been laid down, would form a great formation. As the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance flew towards the Golden Dragon Mountain range, Ji Tianqing was fighting fiercely with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor at the entrance of the cave. He stood proudly in the sky by himself. In front of him was the spatial door with a radius of 10,000 feet. Hundreds of millions of formation veins lit up around the scorching white space gate. 5-colored light flowed through them as they flickered. The 9 silvery Milky Way shadows were also surging and roaring like giant dragons. Tianxing stared at the space gate attentively. His mind was connected with the billions of formations. He cast a spell with both of his hands and unleashed countless beams of divine light. He was controlling the great formation of 9 bends of the Heaven River with all his might to stop the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the others from destroying it. Moreover, he used various attacks through the formation to heavily injure and assassinate the God Kings who tried to break through the formation. On the surface, he didn't seem to be in any danger. After all, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the 60 Immortal Kings were outside the cave, separated from him by the great formation of the 9 bends of the Heaven River and the spatial barrier of the Xuanji Cave. But in reality, it was as if there was a layer of water between the two of them. If one looked outside the cave, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the others at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain could tell how dangerous this battle was. The huge moon in the sky was flashing with 5-colored divine light. The 9 divine rivers soared in the sky like divine dragons, roaring and surging, releasing light beams and sharp blades that covered the entire sky. Swish, swish, swish. The formation continued to release beams of divine light and sharp blades. It was like a rain of swords that covered the sky. They rained down on the 60 Immortal Kings. With the deer-horned elder as their leader, the 60 Immortal Kings were scattered around the moon, in a formation. They were using all their strength to break through the formation. Faced with the rain of swords and beams of light, the Immortal Kings were frightened. However, they didn't dare to dodge, lest they destroy the formation and ruin the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's plan. Therefore, in the past 2 hours, they had endured countless attacks but didn't give way. Now many of them were severely injured. They were covered in wounds and dripping with blood. They looked miserable. The 12 upper-level Immortal Kings were still fine. However, the 48 mid-level Immortal Kings were in a terrible state. Fortunately, they had joined forces to form a battle formation. Everyone's strength was combined and they were able to withstand the attacks. Otherwise, many of the mid-level Immortal Kings would have been killed. Bang, bang, bang. Another wave of swords and beams of divine light came. The Immortal Kings were terrified. However, they could only grit their teeth and endure. Following a series of muffled explosions, more than a dozen blossoms of blood burst out around Bright Moon, and fragments flew everywhere. 7 severely injured mid-level Immortal Kings couldn't hold on any longer. They were killed by the rain of swords and beams of light. Their divine bodies were destroyed on the spot. Among them 4 were unlucky. Their godheads were destroyed and they died. The other 3 were luckier. Their godheads survived and they managed to survive. Before the next wave of swords and beams of light arrived, the 3 godheads left the moon in a panic and fled to the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. 7 gaps appeared in the battle formation. The circulating divine power immediately stopped. As the core of the battle formation, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor felt that his divine power was blocked. His casting speed was also affected. Damn it! The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor cursed angrily. He quickly ordered the Immortal Kings to adjust their positions and repair the gaps in the battle formation. He didn't even look at the 7 Immortal Kings. Instead, he focused on the great 9 bends of Heaven River array and continued to cast spells to break it. The deer-horned elder in the battle formation wasn't injured. He was one of the few who wasn't injured. He cast spells in an orderly manner to help the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor break the array. However, he sighed inwardly. If they continue like this and insist on using spells to break the array, the Immortal Kings will probably suffer heavy casualties. After breaking the array, they will suffer heavy casualties. Their battle prowess will be reduced by half. They might as well give up on breaking the array and attack it forcefully. They can still break it in half a day. However, breaking the array is already at a critical juncture. They will soon achieve a breakthrough. Even if I dissuade the Dragon Emperor now, he won't give up. Once the Dragon Emperor makes a decision, he won't change his mind easily. He is really stubborn. In the eyes of the mysterious Paradise's Immortal Kings, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was a man of his word. This was the might and dominance of a king. However, to the deer-horned elder, he would rather not have such might and dominance. He only wanted to achieve the greatest results with the smallest price. Perhaps this was the fundamental difference between the two. As time passed, wave after wave of divine light blades and beams of light rained down on the crowd, bombarding the 50-odd immortal kings. The immortal kings' injuries worsened. They became weaker and weaker. They were also in a sorry state. Every now and then 1 or 2 immortal kings would be blasted to pieces. They would flee pathetically with only their godheads left. There were even more miserable cases where their godheads and bodies were destroyed. They died on the spot. As the number of immortal kings decreased, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's speed of breaking the array slowed down. Chapter 38:25. 4 hours later, the battle finally came to an end. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was gratified by the outcome. After all, he had defeated Ji Tianxing and successfully destroyed the 9 bends of the Heaven River array. However, the deer-horned elder and the surviving god kings did not feel gratified at all. Instead, they felt as though a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. This was because they had suffered heavy casualties. Out of the 60 god kings, only 39 were left. Out of the remaining 21, 12 had perished. 9 had escaped with only their godheads. Even the 39 survivors were mostly injured, and their faces were filled with exhaustion and weariness. Only the deer-horned elder and a few high-level god kings were safe and sound. They had preserved their strength. With a loud cracking sound, 3 of the 9 Milky Way phantoms that were entwined with the bright moon shattered on the spot. Amidst the bright moon, a 10-meter-wide gap appeared in the ceiling formation. Everyone worked together to release their divine power to seal the gap. This was to prevent Ji Tianxing from repairing the array and filling the gap. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor shouted as he charged into the gap with the Golden Dragon Divine Sword in hand. The deer-horned elder and the 30-odd god kings did not have time to rest. They quickly took out their divine weapons and charged into the gap. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In the blink of an eye, everyone had charged into the Xuanji Grotto and appeared in the dark sky. The air in the Xuanji Grotto was fresher than the air in the Dragon Realm. Moreover, the divine power was 10 times denser. Everyone was energized and their fatigue was swept away. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor held his golden sword as he scanned the sky, searching for Long Tian and the myriad demon alliance's experts. In his opinion, the battle earlier was extremely intense. Long Tian and the other god kings must have worked together to inflict heavy casualties on his subordinates. However, as far as he could see, his surroundings were empty. When he used his divine perception to check, he discovered a white-robed figure 50,000 miles away. He was flying 10,000 miles in an instant towards the depths of the Xuanji Grotto. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not unfamiliar with that figure. He immediately recognized him. That person was that damned Long Tian. Why is he alone? Are there no other god kings helping him? Just by relying on his own strength, he was able to control that great formation with such terrifying power? This thought flashed across the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's mind. He could only feel disbelief and shock. However, he did not delve too deeply into this issue. Instead, he hurriedly led the group and flew across the sky, heading towards the depths of the grotto heaven. Swish! The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor stepped across the sky, his body glowing with white light. Every step he took covered a distance of 10,000 miles. His spiritual consciousness locked onto Ji Tianxing and chased after him as fast as he could. The two of them maintained a distance of 50,000 li between them, unable to increase the distance between them. The deer-horned elder and the 30 god kings were slightly slower. Naturally, they couldn't keep up with the gold-sourced Dragon Emperor. However, they would not lose their way as long as they followed the divine power aura left behind by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. About 100 breaths later, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor chased after Ji Tianxing for over 1,000,000 li. At this point, Ji Tianxing finally stopped in midair and turned to look at the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Even though he was standing alone in the sky, he appeared to be calm and confident. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor immediately became alert. He guessed that the other party was fearless and most likely had a large number of troops lying in ambush. Therefore, he also slowed down. As he flew towards Ji Tianxing, he released his spiritual consciousness to check the situation in all directions. Fortunately, they were surrounded by towering mountains and steep ridges. There were no divine formations or hidden troops. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was slightly relieved. He stepped across the sky and gradually closed in on Ji Tianxing. He shouted in a chilling tone, Long Tian. I have been waiting for this day for 2 whole years. No matter how many schemes you have, you are still trapped in the Xuanji Grotto heaven. Only death awaits you. You killed my subordinates, destroyed my divine palace, and even tried to steal my legacy. Tell me, if I don't crush you into pieces, grind your bones, and scatter your ashes, how can I resolve the hatred in my heart? The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's attitude was tough, and his tone was confident and domineering. However, he was very vigilant. He secretly released his divine power and spiritual consciousness, silently forming domains and seals in the area within a radius of 80,000 li. He had already found out that Long Tian, who was 50 li away, was the real body and not an avatar. No matter what schemes Long Tian had, he only needed to seal this area and kill Long Tian as quickly as possible. Then victory would be in his grasp. Ji Tianxing placed his left hand behind his back and held the Sword of Burial of Heaven in his right hand. He looked at the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor calmly and said, "Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, you are still afraid. Otherwise you could have just attacked directly. Why do you need to be so cautious?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not angered by his mockery. He sneered confidently and said, "Even an eagle needs to use all its strength to catch a rabbit. You have always been sinister and cunning. It is only right for me to be cautious." Ji Tianxing sneered disdainfully and said with a disappointed tone, "I have heard that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, one of the 5 great dragon emperors, has always regarded himself as the descendant of the ancestral dragon. I did not expect that you, the Dragon Emperor of the ancestral dragon, would be as timid as a mouse. You do not have the domineering aura of a dragon emperor. Let me tell you the truth. You don't have to search repeatedly. There is only you and me within 100,000 miles. There is no one else." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor knew that Long Tian was the only disciple of the Heavenly Dragon Emperor. It was normal for him to know these secrets. However, Long Tian's confidence made him feel uneasy. "Long Tian, there are no ambushes, divine formations, or traps around here. Could it be that you think you can kill this emperor just because you lured this emperor here? Ah, you are too naive. What a joke." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Whether I can kill you or not, we will only know after we fight. However, even if I cannot kill you, it is not a problem for me to delay you for a few hours. And in these few hours, you can only watch helplessly as the Divine King powerhouses under your command are killed by our alliance one by one. When the time comes, you will be alone and unable to escape death." As he spoke, Ji Tianxing released an invisible divine aura. It covered a radius of 80,000 miles and formed an invisible sealing territory. He locked on to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's divine spirit. His white robe also fluttered as his battle-intent soared. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor suddenly thought of something. His eyes narrowed and his face turned cold. Mr. Lu and the 30 over-god kings are still not here. Could they have been ambushed and fallen into a trap? In his anxiety, he quickly released his divine senses to check the situation behind him. However, even though he was a peak god king, his divine senses could only cover a radius of 90,000 miles. This was the limit. Within 90,000 miles, there was no trace of the deer-horned elder and the rest in the mountains. He suddenly remembered that when he was chasing Long Tian, he had passed by the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain. The ruins were 300,000 miles behind him. The originally dilapidated land had been repaired and flattened. Moreover, there were many materials piled up on the land and many palace walls were built. Chapter 38-26. With the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's intelligence and alertness, he immediately realized that the problem lay in the Golden Dragon Mountain range. "Long Tian, you set up traps and ambushes in the Golden Dragon Mountain range to kill the God Kings under my command?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor furrowed his brows and glared at Ji Tianxing as he asked in a deep voice. As expected of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. "You reacted so quickly." Ji Tianxing praised him with a smile. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor narrowed his eyes and sneered. "You are indeed sinister and cunning. You know how cautious I am. If you had set up traps and ambushes here, I would not have fallen for them. Therefore you set up traps in the Golden Dragon Mountain range to kill Mr. Lu and the God Kings. When you fled earlier, I was in a hurry to kill you. Even though I passed by the Golden Dragon Mountain range, I did not pay much attention to you. Now even though I know about your scheme, I will not be able to save them. What a good plan. You flatter me. Ji Tianxing still had a smile on his face. He didn't look proud at all. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not upset. He sneered and said, Longtian, I have to admit that your array skills are amazing. If you had set up traps in the Golden Dragon Mountain range, they would have suffered heavy casualties. However, you are too naive to think that you could kill Mr. Lu and the 30 Overgod Kings with just those traps. As the two of them talked, they analyzed each other's schemes and countermeasures. At the same time, they secretly released their divine energy and set up a sealing divine array with a radius of 80,000 miles. Therefore, the two of them were very confident and were not in a hurry to kill. Ji Tianxing smiled and said, Those 30 over people are all intermediate and high god kings. There is even a 9th heaven realm expert among them. He should be the Mr. Lu you mentioned. The arrays that I set up are not enough to kill them. I can only cause them some casualties. However, I purposely released the news of the Divine Palace to force you to attack the mysterious Grotto Heaven. How could I not have prepared an ambush? The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor frowned and said in a low voice, Although you have eliminated a few of my spies in the Demon City, I still know the situation in the Demon City. Luo Ho, the Chief of Internal Affairs, and the left and right protectors are all in Myriad Demon City. They didn't follow you to the Xuanji Grotto. Even if you've set up an ambush in the Golden Dragon Mountain range, it's only a few elders of the Myriad Demon League. Just relying on that meager number of people and wanting to kill over 30 divine kings? In your dreams. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked with a playful smile, So you're sure that the Alliance Master and the Divine King experts are still guarding the Myriad Demon City and can't send reinforcements? Isn't that the case? The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor asked. However, he suddenly guessed something in the next moment. His pupils constricted and his expression changed drastically. Did you build a teleportation divine formation that connected the mystical grotto to the demon city? Suddenly guessing this possibility, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's heart skipped a beat. His chest was filled with anger and shock. Ji Tianxing smiled and clapped his hands. As expected of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, your intelligence and alertness are admirable. It's a pity that you found out a little too late. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor shook his head. His expression was ugly. He gritted his teeth and growled, How is this possible? The mystical grotto and the demon city are separated by more than 20 domains. They're more than 100 million miles apart. Moreover, the spatial barrier of the mystical grotto is much stronger than the other grotto heavens. How could you build a teleportation divine formation to connect the two places? Even I, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, have spent hundreds of years researching it but failed to do so. Many years ago, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had wanted to build a teleportation divine formation to connect the mystical grotto to the 4 directions of the continent. If his research was successful, he would be able to travel hundreds of millions of miles in an instant and easily patrol the Starsource continent. In that case, his control over the Starsource continent would reach the pinnacle. However, he had spent countless time and effort, but it had all ended in failure. Even the teleportation divine formation that he had personally built could only span tens of millions of miles across a single domain. 100 million miles was the limit of a teleportation divine formation. Almost no one had been able to break through it. Therefore, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had not thought of this and did not guard against Ji Tianxing's ability to connect the mystical grotto and the demon city. Seeing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's shocked and incredulous expression, Ji Tianxing revealed a smug smile. Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, do you think that my trump cards and trump cards are the various schemes and schemes? Of course not. This king's greatest reliance is actually his attainments in the Tao of formations and all sorts of divine abilities. Didn't you just say that my array Tao attainments are shocking and admirable? The limit that you think is unsurpassable, I have already broken through it. More than 1,000 years ago, when Kenshin had dominated the divine world, he had built several super teleportation divine formations. At that time he had already broken through the limit of 100 million miles. Ji Tianxing had only used a large amount of divine power and sacrificed hundreds of king-grade divine artifacts to build the super teleportation divine formation. After all, he had already accumulated hundreds of trillions of wealth and resources in his interspatial ring. Even if he had to sacrifice hundreds of king-grade divine artifacts, he would not feel the pinch. Very good. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor finally understood Ji Tianxing's plan. He was so angry that his face turned green and twisted. Long Tian. No matter how careful I was, I still underestimated you. You actually have such a mystique. I did not lose unjustly. However, you are right about one thing. If you want to win, you don't have to rely on schemes and schemes. You have to rely on true power. As he spoke, the golden origin dragon emperor's body shone with golden light. The golden robe disappeared and was replaced by a set of dark golden armor. A simple and exquisite dragon-scale armor covered his entire body. His body expanded to 10,000 feet tall and 6 wings appeared on his back. Golden flames and battle intent surged from his body, making him look extremely domineering. Even if you've used up all your tricks and come up with all your tricks, what's the use? In the end, you will die under my sword. Prepare to die. The golden origin dragon emperor roared. He held the golden dragon divine sword with both hands and slashed toward Ji Tianxing. At the same time, the sealing divine formation that the two of them had secretly set up finally revealed its true form. Zhoush, zhoush. 2 huge light barriers with a radius of 80,000 miles flashed with 5-colored divine light. They quickly condensed and were about to take shape. These 2 sealing divine formations, which were almost identical, cancelled each other out and eroded each other. At the same time, they were also growing rapidly. 2 mighty divine auras of heaven and earth came crashing down and enveloped each other. Seeing the golden origin dragon emperor's domineering sword slash toward him, Ji Tianxing did not want to be outdone. He roared and used his ultimate skill. Heavenly Dragon Tyrant Body. This was the Heavenly Dragon ultimate skill that his master, the Heavenly Dragon Emperor, had taught him. Ji Tianxing also transformed into a 10,000 feet tall golden armored giant. He held the pitch-black sword of Burial of Heaven with both hands and slashed toward the golden origin dragon emperor fearlessly. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 38-27. Ji Tianxing and the golden origin dragon emperor were engaged in an intense battle within the 2 sealing formations that spanned 80,000 miles. Both of them unleashed their best sword skills and unleashed hundreds of nomological laws and divine powers as they flashed around in the sky. Dazzling 5-colored divine lights clashed in the sky and countless divine light shards rained down like rain. Hundreds of nomological laws and divine powers transformed into various images and images that filled the sealing formations. The entire area within 80,000 miles was in a state of chaos. The nomological laws and illusions included stars, silver galaxies, collapsing mountains and rivers, the rotation of the sun, moon and stars, the eruption of heavenly winds and earthly fires, life and death, etc. The shock waves from their intense battle destroyed tens of thousands of miles of land and tore apart the sky. Both of them had only exchanged over 30 moves before the heavens and earth were shattered and a huge hole was blasted open in the Xuanji utopia. The void storm suddenly surged and all kinds of pitch-black turbulence rushed into the Xuanji grotto like seawater flowing backwards. Fortunately, the 2 sealing arrays blocked the destructive void storm and turbulence, so it didn't spread to other places. Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not want to destroy the Xuanji utopia. Hence they could only shift the battlefield and fight in the void. Experts at their level were no longer suitable to fight in the dragon realm. They could easily shatter the spatial barriers, destroy the heavens and earth and create a huge disaster. Once the disaster affected too many innocent living beings, it would be a sin of killing and karma. As long as one had respect for the heavenly Tao, it was impossible not to fear karma. Hence, a battle between peak supreme god kings would usually take place in the void. Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were on par with each other in terms of strength. Both of them wielded king-class upper-grade divine swords. Ji Tianxing's sword skills were even more powerful and could be said to have reached the pinnacle. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's strength was even more profound. He had cultivated for over 20,000 years and it was terrifying. Hence, the battle between the two of them could not be decided in a short period of time. Ji Tianxing was not in a hurry. He only needed to delay the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Naturally, God King Rahu and the soldiers of the Myriad Demon Alliance would kill Mr. Lu and the 30 or so God Kings. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would not allow this to happen. He wanted to kill Ji Tianxing and save Mr. Lu and the others. Before leaving the Xuanji Grotto and entering the void, he used all his strength to break through the sealing formation and open the world within the Golden Dragon Divine Sword. Swoosh. Swish. Instantly, more than 40 low-level divine kings and 3,000 Sir God experts poured down like a 5-colored flood, rushing out of the Grand Sealing Formation. They had already received the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's orders and rushed to the Golden Dragon Mountain Range to assist Mr. Lu and the others. Ji Tianxing's reaction was very fast. When he realized that the situation was not good, he immediately repaired the gap in the seal and charged over with his sword. However, he had only intercepted over 300 god monarchs and killed 6 god kings. The others had already escaped from the sealing formation and were rushing to the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain as fast as they could. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor finally heaved a sigh of relief when he saw more than 2,000 people flying across the sky and disappearing into the horizon. As long as Mr. Lu and the others can hold on for a while longer, the 2,000 soldiers will arrive and resolve the crisis. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had sent people to investigate the strength of the Myriad Demon Alliance for a long time. He could roughly guess that even if the Myriad Demon Alliance had mobilized all their forces, they would only be able to gather 3,000 soldiers. The 2,000 soldiers under his command were fewer than the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, he had more god kings under his command. He would definitely be able to defeat the Myriad Demon Alliance. Just as the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor felt relieved and was thinking to himself, the 300 god monarchs who had been intercepted and trapped in the sealing formation were being slaughtered by Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing controlled the sealing formation and released a terrifying divine aura to suppress the god monarchs. The many high-level god monarchs felt as though they were stuck in a quagmire and could not move. All of them were struggling with their backs hunched and their faces were filled with pain. When Ji Tianxing pointed his sword at the sky, thousands of starry giant swords rained down from the sky and drowned the god monarchs. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was shocked and quickly tried to defend himself. However, it was already too late. The 300 god monarchs could not even hold on for a few breaths under the bombardment of the starry giant swords. They were all smashed into pieces. Snowflakes danced in the sky amidst the starry giant swords. After a while, when the starry giant swords and the starry giant swords dissipated, the 300 god monarchs also disappeared without a trace. Only fragments of god heads and bone fragments were left. They fell from the sky and scattered on the ground. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was furious that he had not been able to stop Ji Tianxing in time. He roared and charged over with his sword. As for the death of the 300 god monarchs, it did not cause any ripples in his heart. After all, they were the elites of the various forces and not the Golden Dragon Guards of the Xuanji Grotto. Of course, even if the 300 Golden Dragon Guards had been killed, he would not be too concerned. Hence, only Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were left on the battlefield. The two of them left the Xuanji Grotto and charged into the vast void one after the other. They started an even more intense battle. At the same time, an even more intense battle was taking place at the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins. After Luoho's Supreme Being and the 3,000 soldiers arrived at the Xuanji Grotto through the super teleportation formation, they followed the plan and rushed to the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins. Many stones, wood and half of a palace wall were piled up on the flattened ruins. It looked like they had stopped halfway, but in reality, it was to conceal the divine formation underground. God King Rahu and the 3,000+ soldiers quickly activated the deity array and hid underground. Before long, Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor flew over the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins and rushed to the depths of the grotto. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was only focused on chasing after Ji Tianxing and did not check the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins carefully. Luoho's Supreme Being and the 3,000 soldiers relied on the cover of the divine formation and did not expose themselves. After waiting for a while, they saw more than 30 godly king experts in a sorry state chasing after them with murderous intent. Hence, when those godly kings flew over the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins, Luoho's Supreme Being and the 3,000 soldiers attacked decisively. More than 10 divine formations were activated instantly and connected together to form a super formation that spanned 90,000 miles. The 5-colored light barrier that covered the sky sealed off the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins. Mr. Lu and the 30 godly king experts were naturally trapped within the formation. Everyone realized that they had fallen into an ambush and immediately formed a battle formation to defend against the enemy. The 3,000 soldiers from the Myriad Demon Alliance took up 6 different positions and formed an even larger battle formation to surround and attack them. These soldiers had a clear division of labor and coordinated well. Under the command of the elders, hall masters and branch leaders, they attacked in an orderly manner. As soon as the two sides clashed, the 30 godly king experts were attacked fiercely. They were beaten back by the 3,000 soldiers and suffered heavy injuries. Immediately after, Luoho Supreme Being, the left and right protectors, and a few high-level godly kings attacked and quickly killed a few mid-level godly kings. Mr. Lu and the rest were in a desperate situation and could not turn the tables. Chapter 38:28. Mr. Lu and the other 30 godly kings were at least at the 5th level of the godly king realm. Each of them could take on 100 enemies by themselves. They had great abilities and power. If there were only 3,000 godly monarchs, they could set up a formation to deal with them. Even if all 3,000 of them died, it would be impossible to kill all 30 godly kings. Especially Mr. Lu and the 11 high-level godly kings. They had a high chance of surviving. In the end, the most likely outcome would be that more than 20 middle-level divine kings would die in battle and only 12 high-level divine kings would survive. As for more than 3,000 Surgods, they would all be killed. However, the situation was different now. The Myriad Demon Alliance not only had 3,000 godly monarchs, they also had 50 godly kings. Even if half of the 50 godly kings were low-level godly kings. However, they had 11 high-level godly kings and a peak godly king like Alliance Master Luoho. Therefore, Mr. Lu and the others would definitely lose this battle. The two sides had only fought for 100 breaths of time, but more than 10 godly kings from Xuanji Grotto Heaven were heavily injured. 9 of them were killed on the spot. Mr. Lu and the remaining 20 godly kings were in an even more perilous situation. They were in imminent danger. Fortunately, Mr. Lu and the 11 high-level godly kings were calmer and more experienced. As the main force, they worked together to set up a defensive formation to block the attacks of the Myriad Demon Alliance. Mr. Lu did not forget to calm everyone down as he helped reduce the pressure on the mid-level godly kings. Everyone, don't panic. Although the Myriad Demon Alliance is treacherous and set up a trap to ambush us, their elites are all here. His Majesty the Dragon Emperor will soon find out that we've been ambushed. At that time, the Dragon Emperor will definitely kill Long Tian and come to save us. Moreover, the Dragon Emperor has 3,000 soldiers and dozens of godly kings with him. Even if the Dragon Emperor cannot kill Long Tian, he will send his soldiers to save us. As long as we hold on until the reinforcements arrive, we can turn the tables and kill all the bastards from the Myriad Demon Alliance. Originally, the godly kings were in a desperate situation. Seeing many of their companions being killed, they were panicking and terrified. Hearing Master Lu's words, everyone calmed down and became much calmer. If Mr. Lu had ordered everyone to obey or said something vague like, "We will win," it would not have had such an effect. However, he didn't hide anything from everyone. With just a few words, he analyzed the situation and gave a definite answer. Only then did everyone believe him and truly feel at ease. After everyone steadied themselves under the leadership of Master Lu, they cast spells in an orderly manner to resist the siege of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. However, the casualties were still increasing. Before long, another 2 god kings were killed on the spot. However, the rate of casualties had been reduced by several times, and everyone was confident that they could hold on until reinforcements arrived. Swish, swish, swish. Whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Tens of thousands of divine spell shadows and blade radiance rained down on Master Lu and the others like a torrential downpour. The area within tens of thousands of miles was filled with divine light and shadows. The 5-colored divine light was especially dazzling, and the entire area was also in chaos. Over 3,000 divine Lord Realm Masters had calm and collected expressions as they released their divine arts in an orderly fashion. The current situation made everyone feel that victory was within their grasp. They were even more impressed with the young Alliance Master's strategy. However, the left and right protectors and a few elders couldn't kill a single mid-level god king, much less injure Master Lu and the others. They started to panic and hurriedly sent voice transmissions to Luoho for help. Alliance Master, they have completely given up on counterattacking. They are going all out to defend. We can't break through for now. The weaker and inexperienced god kings have all been killed by us. The 20 or so people who were still alive were all strong and determined people. It will be difficult for us to make any progress in a short period of time. Lord Alliance Master, the young Alliance Master is delaying the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, but the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor will definitely realize that he has fallen into a trap. He will send reinforcements soon. We have to kill these god kings as soon as possible. Luo Ho stood high in the sky and cast spells to attack the defensive light shield of the God Kings. At the same time he stared at Master Lu, looking for flaws and opportunities to exploit. Hearing the voice transmissions from the left and right protectors and a few elders, his frown deepened as he started to panic. He knew the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's strength and methods better than anyone else. Therefore he was even more worried about Long Tian's safety. Of course he knew that he had to finish off these God Kings as soon as possible before going to reinforce Long Tian. However, Master Lu and the 20 or so surviving God Kings had made up their minds not to counterattack. They were going all out to defend because they wanted to stall for time and wait for reinforcements to arrive. At this moment they were like tortoises that had retreated into their shells. It was difficult to attack them. Luo Ho weighed the pros and cons and decided to take a risk and use an ultimate mystique just to break through the defensive light shield of the God Kings. Devouring heaven. Annihilation. Luo Ho roared as he opened his arms and looked up at the sky. His body emitted a blinding golden light. Then, like a golden whirlpool, he madly absorbed the divine power of heaven and earth in a radius of 90,000 miles. He condensed a huge blade of light high in the sky. The area within 90,000 miles was filled with the violent divine power released by thousands of people. Endless divine arts rippled. Almost no one dared to absorb or devour such a chaotic and heterogeneous divine power. Not to mention devouring such chaotic divine power, once it came into contact with one's own power, one would be disrupted. In the best-case scenario, one's divine Dao foundation would be damaged. In the worst-case scenario, one's divine power would become chaotic and one would explode on the spot. However, Luo Ho God King had used a mystique and a very dangerous method to borrow the divine power of thousands of different attributes for himself. This was undoubtedly a challenge. Boundless divine power surged in from all directions and gathered together in a frenzy. The huge blade hanging high in the sky became thicker and thicker. It also became brighter and more dazzling. However, the pressure and danger that Luo Ho God King was under also multiplied. His face turned pale and his body started to tremble. Cold sweat broke out all over his body. When the 10,000 zhang tall 5-colored blade became solid and its power increased to the maximum, he reached the most dangerous and critical juncture. His divine power started to boil and his consciousness became blurry. His divine Dao foundation shook violently and could shatter at any time. Luo Ho God King did not dare to waste any time. With a furious roar, he immediately controlled the 10,000 zhang tall blade to cleave down at the divine light shield. Before the huge blade arrived, its suppressive divine might had already made Master Lu and the 20-odd God Kings feel uneasy. However, they could not dodge and still needed to maintain the battle formation. They could only watch as the blade of divine light cleaved down. Kaboom! With a loud and clear sound, the huge blade shattered the barrier of divine light, causing fragments of divine light to scatter all over the sky. There were 5 unlucky middle-level divine kings who were struck by the giant blades of divine light on the spot. They were directly smashed into pieces and turned into ashes. The other 22 God Kings were also affected and their formation was disrupted. Chapter 38-29. Mr. Lu and the 20 over God Kings had been able to fend off the 3,000 attacks because of the shield they had formed. However, God King Rahu had taken an extremely great risk. He had destroyed the shield of light with a single strike and killed 5 God Kings. Their formation had been disrupted and their divine powers were in a mess. They could not reform their formation in a short time. The left and right protectors and a few elders took this opportunity to lead the 3,000 soldiers in a ferocious attack. Mr. Lu tried his best to defend himself and even used his body to block the attacks to reduce the pressure on his companions. As a result, he was severely injured and his body was covered in blood. However, it was futile. The 22 God Kings did not have the support of their formation. They were in a mess and fled in panic. The number of casualties increased exponentially. In a flash, another 4 God Kings were killed. Even the 12 God Kings, including Mr. Lu, were severely injured. They were in a precarious situation. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with fear and uneasiness, shrouded in a haze of despair. Has the Dragon Emperor not realized that we have been ambushed? Why hasn't he come to our rescue? There are more than 3,000 of them and Luo Ho is a peak God King. How can we hold them off? We are doomed. The heavens want us dead. We will all die here in half an hour. We won't even have the chance to escape. Everybody looked around at the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance and the super array with a radius of tens of thousands of square kilometers. The desperation in their hearts surged like a flood. At this moment, waves of divine power surged from outside the super formation. Deafening shouts could be heard. Kill all the myriad Demon Alliance bastards. Despicable lackeys of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, die. Mr. Liu and the rest are trapped in the formation. Everyone attack the formation and save them. Don't panic. Maintain the formation and form the 9 Palace Meteor Battle Formation. Without a doubt, the 2,000 Sir Gods and 40 Lower God Kings that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had released had finally arrived. Before they arrived at the Golden Dragon Mountain, they knew that Mr. Liu and 30 God Kings had been ambushed by the Myriad Demon Alliance. Therefore, when they saw a super formation with a radius of 90,000 miles that sealed off the entire Golden Dragon Mountain range, they were not shocked or surprised. When they arrived near the formation, they immediately spread out and formed the 9 Palace Meteor Battle Formation in the sky. The 2,000-plus godly lords and 40-plus godly kings came from more than 10 different factions. They were not familiar with one another, so there was no tacit understanding between them. Therefore, when they formed a battle formation to attack together, they couldn't use a battle formation that was too profound. He could only use the 9 Palace Meteor Formation, which was widely known and relatively common. Even if the power of the battle formation was not strong enough, it might not be able to unleash the power of more than 2,000 Sir Gods. At the very least, they would be able to work together and nothing would go wrong. Soon, over 40 God Kings and over 2,000 God Monarchs formed a battle formation and began to cast spells to attack the formation. The sky was filled with flying stars, saber lights and sword shadows. They poured down like a torrential flood, crashing into the super formation one after another. Ping ping ping. A deafening muffled sound erupted, reverberating endlessly between heaven and earth. The super formation that covered 90,000 miles shook violently from the bombardment. Within the formation, Mr. Liu and the 17 God Kings were in despair. Suddenly, they heard the battle cries outside the formation and felt the turbulent divine power ripples. They were instantly invigorated. Everyone's despairing and gloomy eyes glowed with a strong desire to survive, revealing a look of pleasant surprise. This is great. His Majesty the Dragon Emperor has finally realized that he has fallen into our trap and sent people to save us. Although His Majesty the Dragon Emperor hasn't come, he will definitely kill Long Tian. The 3,000 soldiers are attacking the formation from the outside. If we work together with them, we will definitely be able to break out of the encirclement. Everyone pull yourself together. We will work together to break out of the formation and break out. In the blink of an eye, Mr. Liu and the 17 God Kings were in high spirits. They hurriedly formed a battle formation and slowly broke out of the encirclement. As for the 3,000 soldiers of the Myriad Demon Alliance, they also felt the pressure. Many God Kings frowned, their faces grim. Even though they attacked with all their might, it was difficult for them to kill Mr. Liu and the 17 God Kings. Outside the formation, more than 2,000 Sir Gods and God Kings were attacking the formation with all their might. At this moment, the Demon Alliance soldiers were being attacked from both sides. They were in a precarious situation. Of course, Mr. Liu and the others could not break out of the encirclement in a short time. The 2,000 people outside the formation also could not break out of this super formation in a short time. After all, this chain formation was designed and set up by Ji Tianxing. Even if it was just a mid-king grade formation, it was not something that could be broken by just anyone. The situation on the battlefield immediately became delicate. The left and right protectors and a few elders attacked Mr. Liu and the others with all their might. They did not forget to ask God King Luoho through voice transmission. Alliance leader, there are 12 high king grade divine artifacts among the 18 God Kings. They are working together to form a formation and desperately trying to break out of the encirclement. If we can't kill him, I'm afraid the formation will be broken. Alliance leader, we have already followed the plan. Half of the soldiers are attacking the 18 God Kings. The other half is supporting the formation together to fend off the attacks of the experts outside. If we can't end this quickly, we will be attacked from both sides. We will be in a passive position. God King Luoho had used Devour Heaven, Annihilation earlier and had suffered considerable damage. He had been recuperating earlier. When he heard the protectors and elders asking for help, he hurriedly stopped recuperating. The situation on the battlefield was clear at a glance. He only frowned and pondered for a moment before making a prompt decision. Continue to attack the 18 God Kings. Try to kill as many as possible. I will go outside the formation and personally kill the soldiers of the mysterious Grotto Heaven. With that, God King Luoho's figure disappeared as he quietly flew out of the ceiling formation. Hu Xinyue and a few elders had wanted to go outside the formation with him to kill the enemies. However, the situation was tense. Without the alliance leader's orders, they did not dare to make a decision on their own. They could only carry out the orders. God King Luoho was going alone to kill more than 2,000 experts and God Kings outside the formation. Seemed very dangerous. However, in reality he was a peak God King. Those lower God Kings and godly lords could not trap him at all. If he acted alone he would be more discreet and nimble. The facts proved that God King Luoho's decision was very wise. More than 2,000 godly lords and more than 40 God Kings were attacking the ceiling formation with all their might in the 9 Palaces meteor formation. Suddenly, God King Luoho teleported to the center of the battle formation. He transformed into a 10,000-foot-long heavenly dragon that shone with resplendent golden light as he rampaged through the battle formation. Not only did he release towering divine flames, pillars of light and sharp blades, he also released a 5-colored poison mist that blotted out the sky. Countless godly lord experts were smashed to pieces by him. They were burned to ashes by the divine flames or blasted to bits by the pillars of light and sharp blades. Even more people were corroded by the 5-colored poison mist. They immediately bled from all orifices as their bodies rotted to ashes. Chapter 38:30. Divine King Luoho followed Dragon Emperor Feng Tian and cultivated the way of the heavenly dragon his entire life. His situation was very similar to Ji Tianxing's. Although he did not have the true bloodline of the heavenly dragon, he could use the various skills of the heavenly dragon tribe. Of course, Ji Tianxing's understanding of the way of the heavenly dragon was much deeper than his. That was why he could transform into a dragon's body and make everyone in the dragon realm think that he was a dragon. And Divine King Luoho was most proficient in the way of poison. After his lifetime of research and hard work, the way of poison was no longer limited to the crude methods of using physical objects or divine power to contain poison. He had already cultivated the way of poison, and the formless way of poison contained poison. In fact, he could even use his divine soul power and consciousness to unleash deadly poison. At Divine King Luoho's level, he only needed a thought to kill many divine lords. He only needed a wisp of divine thought to poison Divine King experts. What kind of terrifying method was this? He transformed into a heavenly dragon and wreaked havoc in the battle formation of more than 2,000 divine lords. He easily killed more than 100 divine lords. More than 200 divine lords also turned to ashes under the bombardment of divine fire, light pillars and sharp blades. As for the rapidly spreading 5-colored poisonous fog that blotted out the sky, it caused more than 600 divine lords to be corroded. The powerful poison corroded the bodies of many divine lords into a pool of blood. The formless divine thought poison corroded the souls of many divine lords, causing their consciousness to blur and collapse. Soon they fell unconscious. In just a few breaths, the 9 Palace meteor battle formation was shattered and many divine lords died. Even a few of the lower divine kings were unlucky. They were poisoned and lost their ability to fight. Everyone roared in horror, running away in a panic. They no longer cared about attacking the ceiling formation. With that, the pressure on the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers in the formation was greatly reduced. They attacked Mr. Lu and the others with all their might. Mr. Lu and the 17 Divine Kings were struggling to break out of the encirclement. They wanted to reach the edge of the ceiling formation. After being attacked by the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers, they could no longer advance. Soon more casualties appeared. It looked like their pincer attack was about to be defeated by Divine King Luoho. At the critical moment, the 40 over low-level God Kings outside the Grand Formation actually maintained their calm and steadied their footing. They shouted loudly and hoarsely as they gave their orders. Finally, they managed to calm the 1,000 or so Surgods who were lucky enough to survive. And then they hurriedly went into battle formation, joining forces to defend against God King Rahu's attacks. Moreover, everyone joined forces to cast a forbidden technique and fiercely bombarded the ceiling formation. They knew very well that if they couldn't break through the ceiling formation and save Mr. Lu and the other deity kings, they would all die here. Only by joining forces with Master Lu and the others could they have a chance of survival. The situation immediately stabilized. Even though God King Luoho used the same trick, he did not achieve great results. He only managed to kill dozens of divine lords. He furrowed his brows anxiously as he observed the battle formation of more than 1,000 Sir Gods. He was looking for a weakness and an opportunity to attack. Many godly monarchs led godly lord experts in a frenzy to attack the sealing array several times, but they were unable to breach it. Thus, after weighing the pros and cons, the 12 god kings decided to sacrifice themselves. They cast a forbidden technique, burning their bodies and godheads to form an annihilation spear that could destroy everything. Kaboom! The 3,000-meter-long pitch-black spear shadow fiercely slammed into the grand sealing formation with devastating power. With an earth-shattering explosion, a huge hole was blasted through the 5-colored light barrier. Fragments of divine light flew everywhere. The sealing formation had been breached. The 32 godly monarchs and 1,000 Sir Gods outside the formation burst into cheers. They looked relieved. Although they had suffered heavy casualties, they had achieved their goal. Those who were lucky enough to survive saw hope. Within the formation, Mr. Lu and the 15 godly monarchs, who were in despair, suddenly saw the formation being breached. Their desire to survive was ignited. Their blood boiled as their morale soared. They unleashed the last of their potential and charged towards the opening in the formation. For a moment, the soldiers of the Myriad Demon Alliance could not hold them back. They really broke out of the encirclement. Swoosh! Swoosh! 20 breaths later, Mr. Lu and the others paid a great price to pass through the opening in the formation and escape from the sealing formation. Although only 14 of them were left alive, they were all severely injured and weak. They had escaped the trap of the Myriad Demon Alliance and soon met up with the 1,000 Sir Gods. As a result, the Xuanji Grotto now had 46 godly monarchs and 1,500 Sir Gods. With such a force, as long as they were deployed and used properly, they might be able to fight the Myriad Demon Alliance. Retreat. Let's leave this place first. We'll discuss further. After Mr. Lu and the 13 godly monarchs met up with the 1,000 Sir Gods, they shouted the order loudly. The 1,000 Sir Gods did not hesitate. They quickly followed Mr. Lu and the others and fled into the depths of the grotto as fast as they could. Only by leaving the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain and the area that was full of traps could they fight at ease. At the same time, while they were retreating, Mr. Lu and the dozen godly monarchs were also discussing countermeasures. Did the Dragon Emperor send you here as reinforcements? Yes. What's the situation with the Dragon Emperor? Has he also fallen into the trap and been besieged? No. Long Tian is the only one who can deal with His Majesty. That's great. With the Dragon Emperor's strength and means, he'll kill Long Tian quickly and come back to help us. By then we'll be able to turn the tables. So, we have to pull ourselves together and join forces to resist the attack of the Myriad Demon Alliance. If we can resist for a few more breaths, our chances of winning will increase. As Mr. Lu led the group to escape, he encouraged and comforted them as he formulated the next plan. The godly monarchs and Sir Gods immediately had a backbone and calmed down a lot. On the other hand, when Mr. Lu and the others escaped from the sealing formation, the left and right protectors and a few elders led more than 3,000 soldiers and started a fierce pursuit. Although they were full of killing intent and high morale, the pursuit formation was not disrupted. Luoho Divine King was at the front and followed closely behind the 1,000 Sir Gods. He kept attacking and assassinating along the way to slow down the escape of the others. The 3,000 members of the Myriad Demon Alliance quickly caught up with them and began to fight at close quarters. Seeing that the escape team was being delayed, Mr. Lu decisively ordered them to stop running. If they continued to run, they would definitely be nibbled away by the Myriad Demon Alliance. Under the command of Mr. Lu and the other godly monarchs, the 1,000 Sir Gods formed a battle formation and resisted the siege of the Myriad Demon Alliance. Everyone remembered Mr. Lu's order. They did not want to kill the enemy and gain merits. They only wanted to form the strongest defensive formation and delay the enemy for as long as possible. Chapter 38-31. In the vast and boundless void space, Ji Tianxing and the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had already exchanged thousands of blows, and the battlefield had shifted tens of thousands of miles away. There was nothing in the void space, and no matter how strong the shockwaves from their battle were, nothing could be destroyed. However, countless fragments of divine light and shockwaves were still scattered in the void space, spreading outwards like ripples. The void space where Ji Tianxing and the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor were fighting was filled with flickering divine light, and nomological patterns crisscrossed like a fishing net. Around the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor were two streaks of seven-colored Daoist rhymes, and they were faintly discernible like clouds. Hundreds of nomological patterns manifested images of mountains and rivers, the sun, moon, and stars, and the vicissitudes of life. If an ordinary god king were to spectate the battle nearby, he would definitely benefit greatly, and his strength would increase tremendously. At this point in the battle, the two of them had already gone past the stage of testing each other's strength. Not only did they use their full strength, but they also took out their supreme-grade king-grade divine artifacts. Ji Tianxing wielded the Sword of Burial of Heaven, and the mountain-sized primordial chaos bell hovered above his head. He controlled the primordial chaos bell with his mind, either blocking the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's attacks or neutralizing the Daoist rhymes released by the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. At the same time, he released his divine aura to suppress the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor, restricting his movements and weakening his strength. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor also took out his natal divine artifact, the supreme-grade king-grade heaven-cleaving axe. The axe was dark gold in color, and the handle was curved like a golden dragon. The axe head was flat and wide, and the back of the axe was a lifelike dragon head. This heaven-cleaving axe originated from ancient times, and it was said that it was transformed from a certain golden dragon magnate, and it possessed divine aura and spirituality. While the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor wielded the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and fought with Ji Tianxing, he used his mind to control the heaven-cleaving axe to hover around the battlefield. The heaven-cleaving axe could not only block Ji Tianxing's attacks, neutralize his sword techniques and various mystiques, but it could also constantly attack him, tiring him out. Both of their strengths were about the same, and the primordial chaos bell and the heaven-cleaving axe were equally powerful. They often cancelled each other out, and neither of them had the upper hand. Therefore, the battle between Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would not end anytime soon. If nothing unexpected happened, the two of them would probably still have to compete in the foundation of their divine power to see whose foundation was more robust. In this aspect, Ji Tianxing was no match for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Although his talent was extraordinary, his cultivation time in this life was too short, less than 200 years. Moreover, he was only at the 8th level of the Divine King realm. He had not even reached the 9th level. If he really returned to the peak and became a peak Divine King, then this battle would have ended long ago. Just as Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were locked in a fierce battle. In the depths of the void, a pair of clear and deep eyes were watching their every move. Those eyes contained wisdom, confidence, and dignity, as well as endless vicissitudes of life. Only an expert who had been in a high position for a long time could have such a pair of eyes. It was a pity that the owner of those eyes was a 7-foot-tall middle-aged man with an oily face. That's right, this was a middle-aged man with a big belly. One look and you could tell that he was rich and heartless. He had a ruddy and plump face, a big sunken nose, and a funny mustache. He wore a sapphire blue long robe and a jeweled hat. His 10 fingers were adorned with all kinds of rings, divine jade and emerald. His appearance was no different from the profiteers of the mortal world. At this moment he was in a black divine worship, lying on a luxurious divine jade recliner. There was a jade table in front of him with divine tea and all kinds of divine fruits on it. The blue-robed profiteer leaned on the recliner in an unrestrained manner. He held an exquisite jade flask in one hand and took a sip of wine from time to time. His other hand was twirling divine fruits and eating them one after another. He had an intoxicated expression on his face. However, his eyes were clear and bright. He was focused on the two people who were fighting a fierce battle hundreds of thousands of miles away. No one knew that he had been guarding the peak of Sky Crane Mountain all this while. When the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor led a large group of god kings to attack the great formation of 9 bends of Heaven River, he hid at the side and watched. When the great formation of 9 bends of Heaven River was broken and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the others rushed into the Xianxia Utopia, he followed them silently. He had been secretly following Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. When the two of them rushed into the void to fight, he naturally followed them. No matter how Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor fought, or how they moved the battlefield, He always maintained a distance of 120,000 miles and hid in the dark to watch the battle. And all this had not been discovered by anyone until now. Not only did ordinary god kings not discover him, but even Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not notice him. As time passed, the blue-robed profiteer watched the battle for a while longer. He could not help but reveal a gratified smile. He smiled and muttered to himself, "This little rascal. His appearance has not changed much from before. However, his temperament has changed a lot. It's like he's a completely different person. But that's good too. At least he doesn't pretend to be mature and cold all the time. He's young, so he should act like a young man. It's good to be a little mischievous. Looks like he's had a good time in the divine world. Not only does he have a Dao companion and a son, but even his personality has changed. Sigh, it's a pity that old man Tianlong died early. I can't see him anymore." The blue-robed profiteer was gratified and sighed. He even shook his head subconsciously. However, after watching for a while longer, he gradually felt that it was not interesting anymore. He could not help but feel a little regretful. Sigh, although the little rascal's cultivation is more profound and he has mastered more mystiques, he's still too young. He's not as profound as the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's cultivation. If the battle continues like this, I'm afraid the victor will not be decided even after a day and a night. If it really drags on for 3 days, I'm afraid the loser will still be him. That Ophiuchus, why can't he deal with a bunch of small fries after so long? As he muttered to himself, the blue-robed profiteer split a strand of his consciousness to check on the battle in the Xianxia Utopia. Before leaving the Xianxia Utopia, he left a clone in the Xianxia Utopia to observe the battle in the dark and to prevent any unexpected situations. That incarnation was a man of the dragon clan who was more than 10 feet tall. He was tall and mighty. He wore a pitch-black dragon scale armor. He had a square face and a wide nose. He had a pair of thick eyebrows and big bright eyes. He was majestic, domineering, and had an iron-blooded murderous aura. He was like the general of the dragon clan, the commander of the dragon riders. Before this, the blue-robed profiteer had not made any moves. This clone of his had been hiding underground, concealing all of its aura so that no one could detect it. Now that he had made a move, this dragon general clone moved quietly underground, quickly approaching the battlefield. Not long after, the dragon general clone arrived near the battlefield. He silently flew up into the sky, hiding high up in the sky, overlooking the entire battlefield. He saw that Master Lu and more than 1,000 godly lords were surrounded by more than 3,000 soldiers from the myriad demon alliance. They were being attacked from all sides. The two sides fought fiercely. There were people being killed at every moment. They fell into pools of blood or turned into a rain of flesh and blood. Chapter 38-32. Overall, Master Lu and the others were still at a disadvantage and were in a precarious situation. More than 1,000 of them joined forces to form a battle formation, but they were powerless to fight back. They could only desperately resist the attacks of the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers. Even so, their casualties were increasing and their numbers were decreasing rapidly. Although the 3,000 soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance also suffered casualties, they were few in number and did not affect the overall situation. Victory was in their hands and they were not in a hurry at all. They attacked methodically. Luo Ho Supreme Being stood outside the battle formation and traversed the battlefield freely. He constantly looked for opportunities to attack and kill groups of godly lords. Although the situation was good and the 10,000 Demon Alliance was steadily moving towards victory. However, after secretly observing for a while, the blue-robed profiteer's clone was still somewhat dissatisfied and could not help but shake his head. That Ophiuchus is a bit lacking in martial arts and he's not ruthless and decisive enough. If this continues, will we really have to fight for 3 days and 3 nights? Long Zhang's clone frowned and thought for a while. A sly smile appeared on his face as he thought to himself. Although I can't kill the Golden Dragon Emperor because of the Heavenly Dao Oath, I can still do some small things. It shouldn't be a problem for me to create a little accident, right? As Long Zhang's clone thought, he subconsciously looked up at the sky as if he wanted to get an answer from the Heavenly Dao. However, the Heavenly Dao was destined to not respond to his test. There was still no response. Long Zhang's clone quickly moved. He secretly manipulated the laws and flicked his finger toward the center of the battlefield. Whoosh! The invisible divine pattern of the laws silently passed through the defensive light shield formed by Master Lu and the godly lords and landed in the crowd. In the next moment, the ground within a 100-mile radius suddenly collapsed. Endless divine flames and lava spewed out of the ground like a volcanic eruption. Boom. Boom boom boom. More than 40 godly lords and more than 1,000 godly lords were only focused on defending against the 10,000 demon alliance's attacks. They did not guard against such an accident happening behind them and below them. When a deafening explosion erupted and hundreds of lava pillars erupted, the divine flames that were as turbulent as the tide instantly engulfed hundreds of gods. Many godly lords were burned to ashes by the lava pillars and even more were burned to ashes by the divine flames. The battle formation within a radius of 100 miles was instantly blasted with several gaps. It became fragmented and could not be sustained. On the battlefield, deafening exclamations, screams, and wails of dying people burst out. At least 700 people were burned to ashes on the spot. Among the god monarchs who died on the spot, more than 600 of them were subordinates of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The other 100 or so people were soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. It couldn't be helped. Both sides were very close to each other on the battlefield. The magma pillars and divine flames that filled the sky attacked indiscriminately. Of course, they would not differentiate between friend and foe. This sudden accident not only shocked Mr. Lu and the 1,000 divine emperors, but also shocked them. Even the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance were shocked too. Wariness appeared on their faces. The left and right protectors and a few elders hurriedly commanded the more than 3,000 soldiers to change their formation and try their best to stay away from the area of the lava eruption. The same thought flashed through the minds of countless people and the same question popped up. Why would such an accident happen in such a peaceful place? Why would there be magma and volcanoes under the Xuanji grotto? What is going on? Is this a sudden accident or is it a deliberate attack? If there is a sneak attack, who could it be? Why would they attack indiscriminately? Everyone could not understand and felt that it was very strange. Only Divine King Luoho frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly he realized something and his expression changed. Didn't he say that he would not interfere? Why would he personally attack the subordinates of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor? Moreover, he did not differentiate between friend and foe and even killed my subordinates? Divine King Luoho was shocked and confused at the same time. However, after thinking carefully, he guessed the meaning behind it. He must think that my progress is too slow and did not eliminate these people as soon as possible. Could it be that the young master is in danger and needs my assistance as soon as possible? Divine King Luoho became anxious as he thought of this. He hurriedly ordered the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance to pursue the enemy. This time he did not advance slowly and steadily. Instead, he attacked at all costs and tried to kill Mr. Lu and the others as quickly as possible. This action was immediately effective. Mr. Lu and the thousands of godly emperors under his command were in a state of panic. They could not form a battle formation and had to desperately escape from the area of the volcanic eruption. They were in a mess. More than 3,000 soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, on the other hand, unleashed their greatest strength and charged forward unstoppably. Although this was unreliable and would increase the casualties of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. However, this unstoppable momentum dealt a heavy blow to the morale of the thousands of godly emperors. Even though Mr. Lu and the other divine kings tried their best to calm and order the godly emperors to form a battle formation, their efforts were ineffective. But the effect was minuscule. The number of divine lord experts was decreasing at an extremely fast rate. High in the sky, the invisible Long Zhang's clone could not help but smile when he saw the reaction of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Old Ophiuchus is quite smart. He did not go senile and immediately understood my intentions. After all, I have already attacked once. Even if I break the rules, I don't mind doing it one more time, right? Long Zhang's clone muttered to himself. A playful smile flashed across his eyes. He used his divine power again and flicked his finger at Mr. Lu and the others on the battlefield. Boom. Bang. 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 The battlefield had not yet calmed down. It was still shrouded in lava and divine flames. Right at this moment, along with a few loud and muffled booms, over 1,000 lava pillars burst out from the ground, and even more terrifying divine flames gushed out from them. The thousands of godly emperors who were already in a panic and had nowhere to run were instantly engulfed by the crimson divine flames. More than 1,000 pillars of lava exploded in the crowd, turning hundreds of divine lords into dregs. Of course, this time the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance fought bravely and were closer to the enemy. More people were unlucky. Of the 800 people who were blown into smithereens on the spot, more than 200 belonged to the Myriad Demon Alliance. The other 600 godly emperors were the subordinates of the Golden Source Dragon Emperor. When the deafening explosions stopped and the lava and flames that covered the sky dissipated, the battlefield was a mess. It was too horrible to look at. Mr. Lu and the other divine kings survived. The thousands of godly emperors were reduced to about 400. Moreover, the 400 survivors were all heavily injured and weak. They were in a sorry state. Such an outcome meant that they had lost their momentum and were about to be killed. Chapter 38-33. Mr. Lu and the rest were doomed to die. Under the siege of the 3,000 Demon Alliance soldiers and Luoho Supreme Being's all-out attack, the 400 godly emperors were quickly wiped out. Only 30 godly kings were left. They struggled to hold on as they escaped into the depths of the grotto heaven. Mr. Lu knew that they had lost. They had lost miserably and there was no turning back. What he needed to do now was to save everyone's strength so that they could meet up with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Therefore he used his divine consciousness to send an order to the 30 godly kings around him. Everyone stop fighting the Demon Alliance. Try to save your strength. We will join forces and form the Star Shuttle Battle Formation. We will try our best to break free from the encirclement of the Demon Alliance and meet up with the Dragon Emperor. Although we lost miserably in this battle and it was a little baffling. But if we meet up with the Dragon Emperor we still have a chance to turn the tables. Mr. Lu's words echoed everyone's thoughts. They were godly kings, not the 1,000 godly emperors who had died. Of course they did not believe that there would be lava and volcanoes under the Xuanji Grotto heaven. Everyone muttered in their hearts. This was too strange. Someone must have attacked them secretly. However, Mr. Lu did not hide anything. He voiced out everyone's doubts and pointed out a direction. Everyone was no longer confused. They gathered themselves and formed the Star Shuttle Battle Formation together. They followed Mr. Lu to break out of the encirclement. But how could the encirclement of the 3,000 Demon Alliance soldiers be so easy to break out of? Moreover, there was Luoho Supreme Being, a peak godly king. The battle between the two sides was extremely fierce. Divine light danced in the sky. Saber light and sword shadows covered the sky. Loud sounds were incessant. The 30 godly kings used their last bit of strength but still could not break out of the encirclement. Instead, 24 of them were killed. The remaining 9 high-level godly kings and Mr. Lu were also severely injured. They were at the end of their rope. Seeing Luoho Supreme Being, the left and right protectors, and the many elders leading dozens of godly kings, everyone was in despair. They knew that they could not escape. There was no hope of survival. They placed all their hopes on Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu, we can't escape. We don't have the strength to fight anymore. Mr. Lu, only you have a chance to escape and return to the Dragon Emperor. We are bound to die here. In that case, we might as well work together to fight for Master Lu's survival. Mr. Lu, you must survive. Remember to tell His Majesty the Dragon Emperor that he must avenge us. The 9 high-grade god kings who were covered in wounds looked at Master Lu with hope in their eyes, and told him to take care of himself through telepathy. After that, the 9 high-level divine kings used a forbidden secret technique at the same time. They burned their godheads and blood souls and erupted with their last bit of power. Master Lu was surrounded by the 9 king-level weapons. He was protected by the last of the 9 immortal kings' power. It was as if he was in a sea of fire. He shouted loudly, persuading the 9 divine kings to stop casting the spell. However, the situation had already exceeded everyone's control. Those 9 high-level divine kings were already determined to die, and they were resolutely unwilling to stop. With their final hopes and prayers, they turned into ashes in the raging flames, releasing the most terrifying divine power. Swoosh! In the next moment, endless blood-red flames enveloped the 9 immortal artifacts and Master Lu. They streaked across the sky like meteors and blasted into the depths of the Xuanji Grotto. The soldiers of the Myriad Demon Alliance who were in the way were instantly blasted into pieces by the meteors. They turned into ashes in the blood-red flames that filled the sky. The encirclement of the myriad demon alliance was broken. More than 100 godly lords and 5 immortal kings were killed on the spot. The huge blood-red meteor also shot out of the encirclement like an aurora and disappeared into the horizon. Such a shocking scene brought a great shock to the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Many of them were dumbfounded. Even Immortal King Luoho did not expect that the enemy would choose to end the battle in such a way. When he came back to his senses and prepared to suppress them, it was already too late. Fortunately, Master Lu was the only one who managed to escape. The soldiers under the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were all wiped out. The left and right protectors and a few elders came back to their senses. They hurriedly shouted and led the soldiers into the depths of the grotto. They wanted to continue chasing after Master Lu. However, Immortal King Luoho waved his hand to stop them. Stop. Do not pursue. Everyone rest and recuperate. Clean up the battlefield and treat the injured. Although many people did not understand Immortal King Luoho's decision, all the soldiers obeyed his orders. Nearly 3,000 people put away their weapons and hurriedly circulated their energy to regulate their breathing, treat their injuries, or treat their injured comrades. Under the arrangements of the Hall Masters and Division Masters, a group of soldiers went to clean up the battlefield and collect the spoils of war and the corpses of the myriad Demon Alliance soldiers. The left and right protectors, a few elders, and the heavenly kings all flew to Immortal King Luoho and asked him about their next course of action. Immortal King Luoho said calmly, "We have already won this battle. Everyone has worked hard. Now our only enemies are Master Lu and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. A battle of this level is no longer something that ordinary members of the Alliance can participate in. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th elders, you all stay here and lead everyone to recuperate and wait for orders. The rest of you, if you still have the strength to fight, follow me. We will go and support the young master." Everyone agreed with his orders and immediately got to work. The 4 elders stayed behind to preside over the situation and lead the soldiers to recuperate. The other 3 elders, the 5 heavenly kings and the left and right protectors all followed Immortal King Luoho into the depths of the grotto heaven. These 10 people were all immortal kings. Only with such strength could they hunt down Master Lu and besiege the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! The 10 people streaked across the sky like streaks of light and quickly arrived at the depths of the grotto heaven. Along the way, everyone sensed the aura of Master Lu's divine power, but they did not see any trace of him. After flying for 1,000,000 miles, they discovered that there were still a dozen or so wide spatial rifts in the sky above the mountains and precipitous ridges that were slowly healing. Immortal King Luoho used a mystic technique to investigate this area and confirmed that this was the battlefield of the young master and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Moreover, the young master and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had already moved the battlefield and entered the void. Immortal King Luoho led the other 9 people into the dark and cold void to search for Ji Tianxing. They had just entered the void, and before they could find any trace of Ji Tianxing, they saw a streak of crimson flames rapidly flying in front of them. The streak of crimson flames that resembled a meteor was Master Lu, who was wrapped in boundless divine power and protected by 9 divine artifacts. The power that the 9 immortal kings had sacrificed their lives for had helped him escape so far, and it had yet to dissipate. Immortal King Luoho and the others chased after Master Lu and flew into the depths of the void. The 2 parties chased for 1,000,000 miles and the distance between them narrowed. When the 2 parties were 50,000 miles apart, Immortal King Luoho and the others finally saw an area of dazzling divine light 100,000 miles away. That was the battlefield of the young master and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Chapter 38-34. Even though the battlefield was engulfed by the dazzling divine light, it was still a dazzling scene. The colorful divine light and the brilliance of the sacred tree covered Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. However, Luoho Supreme Being and the others could clearly sense the aura of their young master and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Previously, they were still worried that their young master would not be a match for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. After such a long battle, their young master would have been injured. Now that they saw that their young master and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were evenly matched, they felt more at ease. From the looks of it, their young master was not injured and was not at a disadvantage. Swoosh! At this moment, the bloody flames that enveloped Master Lu finally dissipated. Under the protection of the 9 divine artifacts, Master Lu charged into the battlefield and controlled the divine artifacts to attack Ji Tianqing like cannonballs. Swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The 9 divine weapons of different shapes and sizes all ignited with divine flames that shot up into the sky. They exploded with destructive power that enveloped Ji Tianqing's figure. Master Lu was very decisive and ruthless. In order to severely injure Ji Tianqing, he did not hesitate to detonate the 9 divine artifacts. Once the 9 king-grade divine artifacts exploded, they would unleash a terrifying power that would not be weaker than a 9th heaven realm god king. Did the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor tell Master Lu to cooperate with him to attack Ji Tianqing? Or did Master Lu know that Ji Tianqing was the core of the Myriad Demon Alliance and that he would have a chance to turn the tables if he killed him? Anyway, when Master Lu attacked Ji Tianqing with all his might, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor roared and used his ultimate move. Rage of the Ancestral Dragon. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor shone with golden light that condensed into a 10,000 feet long ancestral dragon shadow. It stretched out its 5 huge claws and slammed down on Ji Tianqing. Before the dragon claws arrived, a terrifying suppressive force had already shrouded Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was instantly in a perilous situation. He could neither advance nor retreat and was in imminent danger. When God King Rahu and the left and right protectors saw that their young master was in danger, they were so angry that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They were so anxious that their insides burned. Unfortunately, everyone was too far away and it was too late for them to stop and rescue him. The 9 king-level upper divine artifacts exploded in the void, creating dazzling sparks around Ji Tianqing. A deafening explosion rang out, and the destructive shockwave immediately engulfed Ji Tianqing. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing's figure disappeared into thin air. The primordial chaos spell that blotted out the sky also disappeared with him. God King Rahu and the others were rather far away, so they didn't know what was going on. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu saw clearly that Ji Tianqing had hidden inside the primal chaos primordial bell the moment the 9 divine weapons exploded. At the same time, the primordial chaos bell that covered the sky suddenly shrunk to the size of a speck of dust. Boom, 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 boom. The shockwave from the 9 divine weapons explosion turned into surging 5-colored flames that spread out like a tidal wave, sweeping across a radius of tens of thousands of miles. Mr. Lu retreated as fast as he could, while God King Rahu and the others were forced to stop and work together to defend themselves. The primordial chaos bell that was as small as a speck of dust was also blasted back a few thousand miles, tumbling in the void. Before the primordial chaos bell could stabilize, the ancestral dragon's huge claw that blotted out the sky slammed down. Bam, 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 bam. The empty void was hit by the ancestral dragon's huge claw, and the void vibrated continuously. The primordial chaos bell was blasted back a few thousand miles, tumbling deeper into the void. Fortunately, the primordial chaos bell was a king-level upper divine artifact. Even after being hit repeatedly, it wasn't damaged. Ji Tianqing, who was hiding inside the primordial chaos bell, was unharmed. Ji Tianqing dodged the joint attack of Mr. Lu and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor just like that. The two of them were filled with frustration and resentment, while God King Rahu and the others in the distance heaved a sigh of relief. Taking advantage of this opportunity, God King Rahu hurried to the battlefield with 9 other God King experts to meet up with Ji Tianqing. Young Master, we're here to help you. Young Master, are you all right? Young Master, we've killed more than 1,000 soldiers under the Golden Dragon Emperor's command. The 10 God Kings surrounded the primordial chaos bell, bowing excitedly as they reported the battle situation. Swoosh. The primordial chaos bell suddenly expanded to a radius of 10,000 feet, and Ji Tianqing flew out from it, appearing in front of everyone unscathed. God King Rahu and the others hurriedly gathered around him, asking about his well-being and reporting the situation. Young Master, we've killed the soldiers under the Golden Dragon Emperor's command. Only Mr. Lu managed to escape. Young Master, you've worked hard to fight the Golden Dragon Emperor alone for so long. Don't worry, Young Master. If we work together, we'll definitely be able to kill the Golden Dragon Emperor today. God King Rahu and the others discussed with Ji Tianqing the countermeasures and the next step of the plan. On the other side, Mr. Lu's expression was sorrowful, and his tone was solemn as he reported the results of the battle to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Your Majesty Dragon Emperor, the soldiers we have gathered from all over the world, have all died in battle. When the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor saw Mr. Lu rushing over alone, he was already mentally prepared. However, when he heard the news and confirmed his suspicions, his vision still darkened. His qi and blood surged in reverse and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He could not accept this cruel blow and he stared straight at Mr. Lu, asking in a low voice, "Are you sure? Everyone died in battle and only you escaped?" Mr. Lu was also filled with grief and his heart was extremely heavy. With tears in his eyes, he nodded and said, "Yes. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's body trembled, and his face turned as white as a sheet. His mind went blank for a moment. Mr. Lu was filled with grief and he instinctively said, "Your Majesty, my condolences. We were ambushed by Long Tian, and more than 3,000 myriad Demon Alliance soldiers surrounded us. All of them would rather die than retreat. They are heroes." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor took a deep breath and suppressed his grief, and he stared at Mr. Lu with a burning gaze. His lips parted several times but no words came out of his mouth. In fact, he really wanted to roar and question Master Lu. "Why are you the only one who survived when everyone else died in the battle? Why don't you go and die?" However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not lose his rationality, and he did not say this in the end. After all, Mr. Lu was not injured and he was still a powerful fighter. Moreover, Mr. Lu still had a huge network of forces in the extraterritorial galaxy, and he still had countless loyal subordinates. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had already thought it through. He had already suffered a crushing defeat in this battle with the Myriad Demon Alliance. Now he could only escape from the Dragon Realm, go to the extraterritorial galaxy and take control of that galaxy and plan to rise again in the future. Therefore he could not fall out with Mr. Lu yet. After taking a few deep breaths, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor finally suppressed his anger and calmed down. He nodded at Mr. Lu and said in a heavy tone, "The soldiers died in battle under orders and they died a worthy death. I will always remember their sacrifice and dedication. Now only you and I are left. Although we have lost our advantage, we cannot leave in such a cowardly manner." Wonderful Book House. Chapter 38-35. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's words were a clear indication of his current situation. He was not intoxicated by the power and glory of the past and could not extricate himself, nor was he in a state of self-numbness. He had a clear understanding of the present and the future. Mr. Lu was very pleased with this. He quickly nodded in agreement and said, "Your Majesty, our military strength is not as good as the myriad demon alliances, and we are not as well prepared as them. It is reasonable that we have lost this battle. As the saying goes, where there is life, there is hope. As long as you are around, we still have hope of making a comeback. As long as we can kill Long Tian or Luo Ho today, it will be a great victory. At that time we will retreat to the extraterritorial galaxy, reorganize our troops and build up our strength. When the time is right, we can still fight our way back to the Dragon Realm and take back the Starsource continent." When Mr. Lu said this, his eyes shone brightly. He was very confident and full of hope. After saying this, he did not forget to add, "Your Majesty, please rest assured that I will always support your decisions and follow you." The sentence was very inspiring and touching. At such a critical moment, Mr. Lu was still so loyal and did not abandon him. It was indeed commendable. However, when the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor heard this, a different thought appeared in his mind. Mr. Lu's sentence means that he does not want to die and cannot die. He is reminding me that those forces in the extraterritorial galaxy still need to be gathered and controlled by him. He is threatening me and forcing me to protect him. At this thought, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor laughed coldly in his heart. However, time did not allow him to think or talk more. On the other side, Ji Tianxing, Luo Ho Supreme Being, and the others had finished their discussion and formed a battle formation. Swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Ji Tianxing and the 10 God Kings joined hands to cast a spell in the void, forming a super ceiling formation with a radius of 100,000 miles. In the next instant, boundless divine light condensed into a huge screen of light that descended from the sky and enveloped the area. Everyone was trapped in the ceiling formation. Ji Tianxing and the 10 God Kings were not affected at all and they could move freely. However, the formless sealing power was firmly suppressing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu, causing them to be unable to circulate their divine power freely. Under such circumstances, their battle prowess was greatly reduced. Kill. Kill the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. Once and for all. For the Starsource continent, for the Myriad Demon Alliance, kill. Luoho Immortal King and the other 9 Immortal Kings roared as they waved their divine weapons and unleashed their most powerful killing moves to surround and attack Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu. Hundreds of divine spells lit up, and countless divine spell phantoms appeared in the void. Swords and sabers, mountains and rivers, flying birds and giant beasts, flowing fire and lightning, all of them rained down and drowned Master Lu and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The two of them were like a sailboat in a stormy sea, bobbing up and down unsteadily. They were in imminent danger and could be torn into pieces at any moment. Boom, boom, boom. At this critical juncture, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu unleashed their strongest powers and unleashed their most powerful killing moves. The dazzling brilliance of the divine arts collided fiercely in the void, producing deafening explosions. After a series of clashes, the divine light fragments dissipated, and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu flew out from the divine light. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not suffer any injuries, but his robe and hair were in a mess. There were some charred marks on his body and he looked rather pathetic. However, Mr. Lu was in a terrible state. He was severely injured and his body was covered in blood. There were hideous wounds on his chest and back. Even the antlers on his head had been sliced off by the divine light blades. He looked rather pitiful. Blood flowed down from his head and stained his face. His face was covered in blood and he was panting heavily. His divine power was also in a mess. He looked around and saw that Xianxia, God King Luoho, and the others were still filled with killing intent. Mr. Lu thought of retreating. Your Majesty, they outnumber us. Not only do they have 9 high-level God Kings, but they also have 2 peak God Kings. Under such circumstances, it is meaningless for us to continue fighting. Why don't we leave now and return to the Sirius Star Zone to discuss further? The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor held the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and the Sky-Cleaving Axe. He turned to look at Mr. Lu and said expressionlessly, "Are you afraid, Mr. Lu?" Mr. Lu was speechless. He would be lying if he said that he was not afraid. If they continued fighting, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor might not die, but he would definitely die in battle. However, he could not admit to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's questioning. Therefore, he could only brace himself and explain, "I have nothing to fear as long as I am loyal to your Majesty. However, I believe that the more dangerous the situation is, the more we need to remain calm and rational. The outcome is irreversible. We should preserve our strength and return to the Sirius Star Zone. After we have recuperated and strengthened our forces, we can make a comeback." However, before Mr. Lu could finish, Xianxia Luoho Supreme God, and the others launched another attack. They worked together to activate the Sealing Formation and released a terrifying power to suppress the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu. At the same time, Xianxia used the Apocalypse Sword to lock onto Mr. Lu's divine spirit. Luoho Supreme God, the Left and Right Protectors and Wanli Supreme God also locked on to Mr. Lu's aura and released their most violent mystiques. Everyone knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was very powerful and had the Sky-Cleaving Axe to protect him. It would not be easy to kill him. Therefore, they had to kill Mr. Lu first before attacking the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. At this moment, Mr. Lu was under the most terrifying pressure. Facing the joint attack of the group, he was extremely terrified. At this critical moment, he let out an indignant roar and unleashed his full potential to block the joint attack of the group. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's face darkened and he was worried. He quickly went to help Mr. Lu. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor only managed to block half of the divine skill attacks. A few other mystiques hit Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu only managed to block 2 of the mystiques before he was hit by the Apocalypse Sword and the 5-colored poison blade. With a crisp cracking sound, Master Lu collapsed on the spot, exploding into pieces that blotted out the sky. A rain of blood splattered in the void. His divine body and godhead were not spared. They were smashed into pieces and he died instantly. Even his divine artifact and protective armor were cut into pieces. Only a space ring was left. It was mixed with blood and scattered in the sky. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was filled with hatred. He did not hesitate to snatch the space ring. This was because the Domain Lord star seal of the Sirius star zone was in this space ring. Mr. Lu could die, but he could not lose the Domain Lord star seal. End of chapter. Chapter 38-36. The environment and situation in outer space was very different from the Dragon Realm. A star field usually had hundreds of thousands or even millions of stars, and thousands of them were inhabited by intelligent life forms. In other words, each star field had at least a few thousand worlds, and the life in each world was divided into different races. As a result, every star field had countless races. Whether it was knowledge, concepts, customs, or beliefs, they were all very different. It was very difficult to have a unified standard. Therefore, controlling a starfield was much more difficult than controlling a star source continent. Even though the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had been in the Sirius star zone for hundreds of years and had built up a force that was not to be underestimated, he was still not strong enough. But he could not become the master of the stellar area, so he could only help Master Lu become the area master. Before this, he had controlled the entire Sirius star zone through Master Lu. And Master Lu controlled the entire starfield with the Sirius star seal. It was a very important token that had a mysterious connection with the thousands of worlds in the Sirius star zone. Even if Master Lu was killed, as long as the Sirius astral seal remained, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor would still be able to control the Sirius star zone. Schwa. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor grabbed the interspatial ring and probed it with his spiritual consciousness. After confirming that the Sirius star seal was in the ring, he was secretly relieved. At this moment, Ji Tianxing, God King Rahu, and the others adjusted their formation slightly, shrinking the sealing array to a radius of 30,000 miles. The battlefield had shrunk significantly, and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had to bear the brunt of the seal alone. His battle prowess was further weakened. No one was in a hurry to attack. They secretly adjusted their divine power and prepared for the next joint attack. Luoho God King stared at the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and said coldly, "Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, you are all alone now. Not only have you suffered a crushing defeat, but you will also die here. The outcome has already been decided. Do you still want to put up a desperate struggle?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not in a hurry to retaliate. He took the opportunity to consume 2 divine pills to quickly recover his divine power. The Sky Splitter axe circled above his head. He wielded the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and pointed it at God King Luoho, sneering, "What? Could it be that if this emperor were to surrender, you would still spare this emperor's life? I don't think you would dare." Everyone knew that an overlord like the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, a peak God King, had to eliminate the source of trouble as long as the opportunity presented itself. If he was allowed to live, he would definitely be able to make a comeback. He would definitely make a comeback and take revenge. God King Luoho didn't deny this. Instead, he said expressionlessly, "Golden Dragon Emperor, we all know that you must die, so why are you asking questions when you already know the answer? However, I can guarantee that I'll give you a dignified death, and I'll bury you in the profound paradise." Before God King Luoho could finish, Golden Origin Dragon Emperor interrupted him with a hearty laugh. "Ha ha. You old bastard, you are truly treacherous. Not only do you want to kill me, but you also want to monitor me even after I die. You even want to imprison me in the Xuanji heavenly abode? Could it be that you're afraid that this emperor's remnant soul will come back to life and seek you for revenge?" God King Luoho didn't deny this. Instead, he replied expressionlessly, "You're the Golden Dragon Emperor after all. Of course I have to be more careful." "Dream on." Golden Origin Dragon Emperor sneered disdainfully. "Even though I've lost this battle, do you really think that you can kill me? Aha, I really don't know where you get your confidence from." As soon as he finished speaking, Golden Origin Dragon Emperor waved his Golden Dragon Divine Sword, sending out sword lights and dragon shadows that blotted out the sky. Then he used his mind to control the sky-cleaving axe to attack Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing didn't let his guard down. He used his arts to control the primordial chaos spell to block the sky-cleaving axe's attack. God King Luoho and the left and right protectors also used all their mystiques to block the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's attack. Both parties engaged in an intense battle in the void again, unleashing all their firepower. This time the battle was even more intense than the previous one. There were 11 people on Ji Tianxing's side. They formed a battle formation and surrounded the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. No matter how strong the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was, he couldn't withstand the combined attacks of so many people. He had used up a lot of his divine power and his strength started to weaken. He was in a precarious situation. In less than 100 breaths' time, both parties had exchanged hundreds of blows. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was starting to get injured. Although the sky-cleaving axe was very powerful, it was mostly neutralized by the primordial chaos bell. Moreover, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor couldn't defend himself in time. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's hair was disheveled and his clothes were tattered. Hideous wounds appeared on his body and blood kept spilling out of them. His expression and eyes were getting darker and darker. The anger and helplessness in his heart were also deepening. At this point he was in a passive position. He could only block and parry the attacks. He couldn't even move forward or backward. Don't tell me. I'm really going to be killed by these worms? Impossible. No matter how bad my situation is, I can still fight my way out of here with the sky-cleaving axe in my hand. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor thought to himself as he used his arts to block the attacks of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Even though things had developed to this stage, he was still confident that he could escape. However, it was too humiliating for him to escape in such a pathetic manner. He couldn't accept it. Even if I can't do it, I will definitely lose today. I can only return to the Sirius Star Zone. I can't escape like this. I have to kill Long Tian to vent the hatred in my heart and deal a heavy blow to the Myriad Demon Alliance. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor thought to himself and gritted his teeth. In the entire Myriad Demon Alliance, the person he hated the most was Long Tian. His hatred and resentment for Long Tian far exceeded everyone else's. However, it's too difficult to kill Long Tian under the protection of the 10 Supreme Gods. Even though I have the sky-cleaving axe, I have to sacrifice something and use my forbidden mystique to kill him. This thought flashed across the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's mind. After pondering for a while, he made up his mind. He waved the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and controlled the sky-cleaving axe to force the Luoho Supreme Being and the left and right protectors to retreat. At this moment, Ji Tianxing brandished the Heaven Barrier Sword and stabbed over. Now is the time. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had been waiting for this opportunity. He held the Golden Dragon Divine Sword tightly and used his forbidden mystique without hesitation. Reverse Blood Dragon Annihilation. At this moment, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor roared in his heart. He suddenly activated his secret technique. The blood in his body surged in reverse and the power of his divine spirit poured out crazily. His entire body lit up with a dazzling golden light. He was as dazzling as the sun. His body also expanded rapidly. His clothes and armor were torn to pieces. His entire body was covered with dense dragon scales. In order to use this ultimate technique, he had sacrificed 5,000 years of cultivation and infused it all into the Golden Dragon Divine Sword. The Golden Dragon Divine Sword instantly expanded 1,000 times and became a dazzling light sword. It carried the power to destroy everything and slash toward Ji Tianxing. Although the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would be greatly weakened after using this forbidden mystique, he would still be in a weakened state. However, he had used his strongest attack and sacrificed his destiny artifact, the Golden Dragon Divine Sword, to kill Ji Tianxing on the spot. Chapter 38-37. At this moment, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the Golden Dragon Divine Sword were the most dazzling sun in the void. He was like the sun that was setting in the west, changing from golden brilliance to dim and lightless, and gradually returning to silence. When the golden radiance disappeared, his body was hunched over and his hair had turned white. He had also become old and weak. As for the 1,000-meter-long Golden Dragon Divine Sword, it had been infused with a terrifying amount of power. It had completely turned into a pillar of light. It was like a sword radiance that could split the heavens and earth. It was also like a crystal-clear pillar of fire. It contained the most violent sword intent, divine power, spiritual energy, and more than 200 types of laws. Of course, there was also a trace of Daoist rhyme that was hidden deeply. That was the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's strongest killing move. When the Golden Dragon Divine Sword slashed towards him, Ji Tianxing frowned. He felt immense pressure and the threat of death. His expression turned grave. However, he did not hesitate and had no intention of retreating. He immediately controlled the primordial chaos spell to protect himself. He wanted to use the primordial chaos bell's strong defense to take the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's attack head-on. After all, the Golden Dragon Divine Sword had locked onto his godhead. There was no way he could escape. He knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had paid a huge price to use this forbidden mystique. As long as he could withstand this attack, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would not be a threat. He would be able to kill him quickly. At this moment, God King Luoho, the left and right protectors, and the Wanli Divine King were all shocked. Their eyes widened in fear and worry. No one had expected the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to be so cunning and bold. He was willing to sacrifice thousands of years of cultivation to kill Ji Tianxing. In their extreme worry and shock, no one hesitated. They charged towards the Golden Dragon Divine Sword without caring about their own safety. They wanted to help Ji Tianxing block the fatal attack. At this moment there was only one thought in everyone's mind. They would rather sacrifice themselves than let anything happen to the young master. If he died here, the 10,000 Demon Alliance would go on as usual. Nothing would change. However, if the young master died, all the efforts of the myriad Demon Alliance would be meaningless. Whoosh, swish. God King Rahu and the left and right protectors instinctively unleashed their full strength and charged at the Golden Dragon Sword as fast as they could. Everyone burned their divine power and blood, turning into shooting stars. However, everyone's strength and realm were different, so there was also a difference in speed. Aside from God King Rahu and the left and right protectors, no one else would be able to catch up. However, Ji Tianxing didn't have the slightest intention of retreating or dodging. Instead, he went forward to meet the attack head-on. Shua. Under his control, the primordial chaos bell changed its appearance and turned into a pitch-black armor that covered his entire body. He wielded the Sword of Burial of Heaven with both hands and unleashed the Sword of World Annihilation, unleashing his most powerful strike at the Golden Dragon Divine Sword. Seeing this, everyone understood his intentions and decision. He would rather take on the Golden Dragon Divine Sword himself than let God King Rahu and the others die for him. The eyes of God King Rahu and the left and right protectors instantly turned red. They were so anxious that their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. However, no one could stop all of this. Kaboom! In the next instant, the golden sword of world annihilation, tens of thousands of feet long, slammed into the Golden Dragon Divine Sword. The two giant swords collided violently with an earth-shattering boom, sending out billions of golden fragments. Without any doubt, the dazzling golden sword of world annihilation was shattered by the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and disintegrated. However, the Golden Dragon Divine Sword's speed was reduced by 50% and its power was weakened by 40%. Then the dazzling Golden Dragon Divine Sword slashed at Ji Tianxing. Bam! A loud explosion that shook the 9 heavens exploded in the void, spreading for tens of thousands of miles. After the giant sword and the 10,000-foot-tall Ji Tianxing collided, the most dazzling sparks and shadows bloomed in the void. The Golden Dragon Divine Sword was destroyed on the spot, turning into a torrent of divine light that rose into the sky like a mushroom cloud. Most of the divine light torrent spread in all directions and swept through the void. However, a small portion of the divine light torrent still wrapped around the black-armored Ji Tianxing and smashed him into the depths of the void. That's right, Ji Tianxing was sent flying by the terrifying impact. His body was bent over and blood spurted out of his 7 orifices. He tumbled for tens of thousands of miles before he finally slowed down. Although he had the protection of the primordial chaos bell, which helped him block most of the power of the Golden Dragon Divine Sword, he used his own strength and the primordial chaos bell to neutralize the various powers of the Golden Dragon Divine Sword. For example, he neutralized the sword intent, the power of the divine spirit, and the power of laws. However, the trace of Daoist rhyme hidden in the torrent of divine light had dealt him a heavy blow at the most critical moment. The Daoist rhyme was too mysterious. It had long surpassed the category of the divine Dao and divine power. It was a trace of the heavenly Dao's power that a peak divine king had comprehended the heavenly Dao. Ji Tianxing was an 8th-level divine king, comparable to a peak divine king. However, he was still not a peak divine king and had yet to comprehend the heavenly Dao or condense the Daoist rhyme. Therefore, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had to sacrifice a trace of Daoist rhyme in order to kill him. And now, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had succeeded. Although Ji Tianxing had not been killed, he was severely injured and his aura was weak as he floated in the void. Whoosh, whoosh, Wrapped in black armor, Ji Tianxing was like a piece of duckweed that floated unsteadily in the depths of the sea of emptiness. He was unable to move. Only the black armor kept flashing with a weak golden light as if it was resisting something. It was obvious that the trace of Daoist rhyme from the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had not dissipated. It was still entangling him and corroding his godhead and consciousness. Tens of thousands of miles away, the weakened Golden Origin Dragon Emperor looked at Ji Tianxing, who was floating in the depths of the void, and smiled coldly as if he had succeeded. 2e. He spat out a mouthful of blood as a sinister smile appeared on his blood-stained face. Little bastard, you want to fight with me? You are too naive. I will kill you today. After I return to the Sirius Star Zone to recuperate, I will return to kill Luo Ho another day. At that time I will still have the last laugh and regain control of the Star Source continent. On the other side, the Luo Ho Supreme Being, the left and right protectors, and the other 9 people were staring at the void. Seeing that Ji Tianxing was motionless, his weak divine light drifting into the depths of the void as if he was dead or alive, everybody was filled with grief. They were so angry that their eyes almost popped out. Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, I swear I will grind your bones to dust. The Luo Ho Supreme Being's eyes were bloodshot. His body was burning with bloody flames as he exuded a strong killing intent. The left and right protectors, the Wanli Supreme Being, and the others were also enraged. They roared and cursed. However, they ignored the weakened Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and rushed toward Ji Tianxing. Compared to killing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to avenge their young master, their first reaction was to save their young master. However, at this moment the motionless Ji Tianxing, who was still floating in the void, suddenly shone with a 5-colored light. The Luo Ho Supreme Being, the left and right protectors, and the others were still tens of thousands of miles away when a voice transmission sounded in their minds. Don't go near him. Don't touch him. If you want to talk about sword piercing the 9 heavens with more like-minded people, follow me on WeChat. Talk about life, find friend. Chapter 38:38. The sudden divine sense voice transmission stunned everyone. Everyone stopped and looked confused as they searched for the person who had transmitted the voice transmission. It was a middle-aged man's voice. It was deep and majestic, and his tone was unquestionable. However, everyone's eyes and divine senses searched the surrounding void for tens of thousands of miles, but they could not find the middle-aged man. Only God King Luo Ho was stunned for a moment before he guessed the identity of the person who had transmitted the voice transmission. However, he did not reveal it, nor did he search for that person. He immediately understood that since the other party had transmitted the voice transmission to warn him, it meant that his young master was not in danger. Moreover, from the other party's tone, he could tell that his young master was in a complicated and delicate situation. Therefore, God King Luo Ho led the others and spread out in the void, forming a circle to protect Ji Tianxing. Everyone obeyed and stared at Ji Tianxing with concern and curiosity. They wanted to see how he would react and whether he was in danger. No one knew that Ji Tianxing, who appeared to be unconscious and motionless, was actually more awake than anyone else. Although he had been severely injured by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Daoist rhyme, he had not fainted. Instead, his godhead was surrounded by the Daoist rhyme, and his consciousness entered a miraculous illusion. It was a vast expanse of white, boundless sea of clouds like soft cotton wool. He floated in the sea of clouds as though he was weightless. Above his head was the clear blue sky without a trace of impurities. Regardless of whether it was the sea of clouds or the sky, they were all ethereal, clear, and peaceful. Being in the illusion, his mind was free of distracting thoughts and he felt very comfortable. He seemed to have lost his emotions. He had cast aside love and hatred and only wanted to merge with heaven and earth and exist forever. Without a doubt, Ji Tianxing was no stranger to this illusion. Previously, when he had suffered a Dao injury and used the heaven-mending pearl to heal his Dao injury, he had entered this illusion. After drifting in the illusion and sleeping for 100 years, he had comprehended some of the heavenly Dao's will. After waking up, his Dao injury had healed. Now he had been injured by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Daoist rhyme, and his godhead was entangled by the Daoist rhyme, and he had entered the illusion again. Ji Tianxing was not worried at all. His mind and emotions immediately calmed down, becoming peaceful and peaceful. With the experience from last time, he wandered in the sea of clouds and the sky, feeling neither sadness nor joy, emotionless and without desire. Not long after, dense rainbows appeared in the calm blue sky, crisscrossing like a grid. Every rainbow light contained an intense personal will, as well as the fusion and comprehension of the power of the heavenly Tao. Ji Tianxing immediately understood that this should be the Tao aura of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Now the large net formed by the rainbow light had trapped him in a sea of clouds, restricting his movements and preventing him from roaming freely. He was not in a hurry. He neither struggled nor attacked the grids. He only flew in the limited space in the sky, carefully observing the 7-colored meridians, feeling and comprehending the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Tao presence. What was Tao rhyme? Cultivators that had reached the peak of the divine Tao could be said to be the strongest living beings in the world, and they had the qualifications to communicate and interact with the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao was superior to all living beings in the universe. If living beings wanted to become stronger, they had to feel and comprehend the will of the heavenly Tao, as well as learn and imitate the power of the heavenly Tao. The comprehension that living beings gained from this and the power of the heavenly Tao was called Tao rhyme. Ji Tianxing understood that the heavenly Tao was different in the eyes of different living beings. Naturally, each living being's understanding of the heavenly Tao and the Tao rhyme that they condensed were different. In his previous life as a peak godly king Kenshin, he had also condensed 3 wisps of Tao rhyme. Those were his 3 comprehensions of the heavenly Tao. In this life he had not become a peak godly king and had not condensed his Tao rhyme. However, he still had memories of the 3 wisps of Tao rhyme from his previous life. He observed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Tao rhyme and realized that it was different from his 3 wisps of Tao rhyme. Not only were their powers different, but even their understanding of the heavenly Tao and their use of the power of the heavenly Tao were also very different. Kikik. Even if every peak godly king's Tao rhyme is different and their understanding of the heavenly Tao is different, the heavenly Tao is still the same. However, the heavenly Tao was still the heavenly Tao. It would not change because of any living being's perception. Compared to the supreme heavenly Tao, living beings are still too weak. This thought flashed across Ji Tianxing's mind and he could not help but chuckle. He observed for a few more hours. Of course, it could also be a few breaths of time or even a few months. Finally, he finished his observation and gained a deeper understanding of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Tao rhyme. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor has cultivated for more than 20,000 years. His Tao rhyme is deep and stable and he can justify himself. Although his understanding of the Tao rhyme is different from mine, there is no right or wrong. I can learn from it and use it for myself. I can also understand the heavenly Tao from a different perspective. This is not a bad idea. With that in mind, Ji Tianxing tried to open his arms to embrace, accept and absorb the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Tao rhyme. In the end, he was like an invisible whirlpool that started to devour the rainbow light. Whoosh, whoosh. Ray after ray of rainbow light flowed into his body like tiny streams, being absorbed and controlled by him. After an unknown amount of time, the colorful rainbow light that covered the sky and covered the sun was completely absorbed by him. The rainbow grid disappeared and he regained his freedom. Although he had profited from his misfortune and obtained the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Daoist presence, he had become the first expert in history who was not a peak immortal king to master Daoist presence. However, his emotions were neither sad nor happy. They were calm and unwavering to the point of being emotionless. Soon, the illusion began to collapse, and the blue sky and the vast sea of clouds gradually dissipated. Chua. Ji Tianxing, who was wrapped in black armor and glowing with 5-colored divine light, finally opened his eyes. He stood up and stretched his body. He discovered that the injuries he had suffered earlier had actually recovered. Even the bloodstains on his body had disappeared without a trace. Most importantly, the 5-colored Daoist rhyme that had been entangling him had disappeared too. Amazing. It seems that the dreamland is a great opportunity for me. Ji Tianxing was still lamenting in his heart when he heard a series of surprised cheers. This is great. The young master is finally awake. This is unbelievable. The young master has actually recovered. The young master was severely injured. How did he recover after sleeping for a while? I've said it before. The young master is the most powerful and will never be defeated. Hearing the cheers, Ji Tianxing turned around and saw the Luo Ho Supreme Being and the left and right protectors flying over from all directions, their faces filled with excitement. He thought for a while and guessed what had happened earlier. He could not help but feel warmth in his heart. At this moment, in the void tens of thousands of miles away, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, who had just consumed a divine pill to recover his divine power, was completely dumbfounded. Chapter 38-39. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had thought that Long Tian would definitely die after being severely injured by his ultimate skill and corroded by his Daoist rhyme. Even if he had to sacrifice the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and 5,000 years of cultivation, it would still be worth it even if his vitality was greatly damaged. At least he had gotten rid of his greatest threat and it would be easier for him to take revenge in the future. Therefore, when he saw Luo Ho and the rest flying toward Long Tian and protecting him nervously, he thought it was hilarious. He was not in a hurry to escape. He took out some elixirs and consumed them, then he meditated on the spot. He wanted to see Long Tian being corroded by his Daoist rhyme and disintegrate bit by bit. At that time, God King Luo Ho and the others would definitely be enraged and attack him without regard for anything else, wanting to avenge Long Tian. With the sky-cleaving axe, he would definitely be able to kill a few more God Kings and weaken the Myriad Demon Alliance further. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had even considered the possibility that Luo Ho did not have a supreme-grade king-grade divine artifact. After killing Long Tian, he could continue to deal with Luo Ho and the rest. He might even be able to kill Luo Ho. If he could kill Luo Ho, the other God Kings would not be a threat and the Myriad Demon Alliance would be finished. At that time he would not even need to escape from the Dragon Realm. He could easily destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance and regain control of the Starsource continent. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not expect that his beautiful dream would be cruelly shattered just as it started. After being corroded by his Daoist rhyme, Long Tian remained unconscious for 15 minutes before he recovered. Not only did all his injuries disappear, but his Daoist rhyme had also recovered his strength. What terrified the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor even more was that he felt a familiar Daoist rhyme aura from Long Tian's body. He sensed it carefully for a moment and suddenly guessed the result. His eyes widened and he was completely dumbfounded. That's my Daoist rhyme? How is this possible? The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was stunned. He stared at everything with his mouth agape. His mind was blank. He knew that there were only two possibilities for his Daoist rhyme to remain in Long Tian's body. The first possibility was that his Daoist rhyme did not dissipate after killing Long Tian. The second possibility was that Long Tian devoured his Daoist rhyme. Since Long Tian was safe and sound, it was obviously not the first result. However, he was completely unable to accept the second result. That was too absurd. In his entire life in the past 20,000 years, he had never heard of anyone who could devour another person's Dao presence. No one would believe such a thing. However, the scene before his eyes had happened. Monster. This little bastard is definitely a monster. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was both shocked and enraged. He was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. Fortunately, God King Rahu and the 10,000 Demon Alliance's God Kings were still immersed in the shock and joy of Long Tian's safe awakening. Everyone gathered together and screamed, asking about Long Tian's well-being, temporarily forgetting his existence. If we don't leave now, when should we? As this thought flashed through his mind, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor turned around and fled into the depths of the void without hesitation. Even though his actions were very low-key and he tried his best to conceal his aura, not wanting to alarm anyone. However, in the void tens of thousands of miles away, Ji Tianxing immediately noticed the abnormality. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is escaping. Stop him. Ji Tianxing's words reminded everyone. God King Rahu, the left and right protectors, and the other God Kings also noticed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's actions and immediately chased after him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, everyone put away their excitement and chased after the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor with all their might. He used too much of his strength to execute the forbidden mystique previously. His vitality is greatly damaged and he is at his weakest. Now is the best time to kill him. We can't let him escape. Chase after him. Everyone shouted as they chased after the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor with their fastest speed. Unfortunately, only Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu were able to catch up with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The left and right protectors and the other God Kings were left behind. Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu increased their speed and were getting closer to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. It wouldn't be long before they caught up with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. In his current weakened state, he only had 50% of his strength left. He was no match for Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu. Once he was caught, he would have no chance to escape. He would definitely die. At this critical moment, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor made a prompt decision. He entered the Sky Splitter Axe and used it to break through the void and escape with all his might. This move was indeed effective. After chasing for 15 minutes, he had left God King Rahu far behind. However, Ji Tianxing used the Primal Chaos Primordial Bell to catch up with him. They were only 80,000 miles apart. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was already very tired and weak. Seeing that Ji Tianxing was still unwilling to let him go and was unable to shake him off, he could only make a painful decision. He burned his god blood and strength and used all his might to activate the Sky Splitter Axe. Swish! The Sky Splitter Axe shrunk to 1 foot tall and turned into a dark golden flame. It flew into the depths of the void at a speed faster than the speed of light. Ji Tianxing also used all his strength to activate the Primal Chaos Primordial Bell. It streaked across the void like a black shooting star and followed closely behind the Sky Splitter Axe. Unfortunately, in terms of offensive power and speed, the Primal Chaos Primordial Bell was still inferior to the Sky Splitter Axe. As time passed, the distance between the two gradually increased. Unless Ji Tianxing also used a forbidden mystique and sacrificed his strength, lifespan, or burned his god blood to activate the Primal Chaos Primordial Bell. Otherwise, he was destined to never catch up with the Sky Splitter Axe. However, killing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not Ji Tianxing's only goal. He still had many important things to do. He could not harm himself now and waste another 100 years to heal himself. Therefore, he could only watch as the Sky Splitter Axe flew further and further away before finally disappearing into the depths of the void. 4 hours later, Ji Tianxing gave up on chasing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and had to return. Not long after, he met God King Rahu, who was chasing after him. Seeing Ji Tianxing return, God King Rahu knew without asking that he had not caught up with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Regarding this, he wasn't disappointed. It was all within his expectations. The two rode on the Primal Chaos Primordial Bell and returned together. After flying for an hour, they met the left and right protectors, God King Wanli and the others again. Although these 9 God Kings were weaker and were destined to never catch up with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, they were still worried about their safety. However, they were worried about the safety of the Young Master and the Alliance Master, so they still followed them. Ji Tianxing led the group, slowed down and flew back to the Dragon Realm. Very quickly, 4 hours had passed. The group flew back to the edge of the Dragon Realm and stopped outside the spatial barrier of the mystical paradise. Previously, Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had fought and shattered the spatial barrier of the mystical paradise. Only then did they enter the void. At this point, the spatial barrier had already healed. Ji Tianxing could only activate the Burial of Heaven and use all his strength to slash open a crack in the spatial barrier. Before the crack healed, the group passed through and returned to the mystical paradise.